Life today feels like a relentless storm. People wake up with their hearts already racing, minds filled with lists of things to do, bills to pay, people to please, and worries about tomorrow. Many lie in bed at night, staring at the ceiling, unable to silence the anxious voice that keeps whispering, "You are not enough. You are falling behind. You must do more." This voice never rests. It keeps pushing, reminding us of every weakness, every failure, every demand we cannot meet. In this world of constant pressure, peace feels like a luxury only the lucky can afford. We scroll through screens filled with perfect lives that are not our own. We measure ourselves against impossible standards, and we find ourselves trapped in an endless race with no finish line. Stress becomes normal. Exhaustion becomes normal. Feeling empty, even while surrounded by comfort, becomes normal. But deep down, we know this cannot be the way life was meant to be lived. Imagine carrying a heavy backpack filled with stones. At first, you think you can handle it. You tell yourself that strength means carrying more, faster, longer. But step by step, the weight crushes your shoulders, your breath shortens, and your joy disappears. This is how many people carry life. Work, money, relationships, health, reputation, all packed into a burden that never leaves. And yet, even with all the weight, many still feel an emptiness inside. The promotion does not heal the loneliness. The bigger house does not silence the worry. The relationship does not erase the fear of being left behind. The truth is, the world keeps telling us to add more stones, when what we truly need is to put some down. The ancient teachings of the Buddha offer a path out of this storm. Not a dogma, not a demand, but a gentle invitation to stop running, to breathe, and to look deeply into the nature of suffering. Instead of fighting the pain or pretending it does not exist, we are taught to turn toward it, to see it clearly, and to understand it. In that understanding, the door to freedom opens. Buddhist wisdom does not promise to erase life's challenges. It does something far more powerful. It changes how we relate to them. Stress becomes a teacher instead of a prison. Fear becomes a guide instead of an enemy. Loneliness becomes a mirror that reveals the longing for true connection. By practicing mindfulness, compassion, and letting go, we begin to experience life in a new way, lighter, freer, more at peace. This journey is not reserved for monks in distant monasteries. It is for the single mother who cannot sleep because of unpaid bills. It is for the businessman who feels success but not joy. It is for the young student drowning in expectations. It is for the couple arguing late at night, both craving love but trapped in anger. These teachings are for anyone who suffers, because suffering is universal. The gift is that liberation is also universal. When we learn to pause, to breathe, to release the grip of constant striving, we discover that peace was never outside of us. It was always waiting within. This program is not simply about hearing nice ideas. It is about walking step by step through the pains of modern life stress, money, relationships, anxiety, loss, and the endless cycle of dissatisfaction, and finding how timeless Buddhist wisdom speaks directly to each one. Over the next hours, we will explore 10 deep struggles that shape our daily lives, and for each, we will open the door to a solution rooted in compassion, clarity, and mindful awareness. The goal is not perfection. The goal is freedom. A freedom that feels real in the middle of your busy day, in the silence of your loneliness, and in the storm of your fears. A freedom that allows you to breathe again, to live again, to love again. Now let us begin this journey together. We start with the first great weight that so many carry every day, often without pause or relief, the burden of stress. That stress is the invisible fire that burns inside so many lives. It shows up in tight shoulders, shallow breath, and the restless mind that refuses to rest even when the body collapses into bed. In modern society, stress is not only common, it is celebrated. People wear it like a badge of honor, proof that they are working hard, hustling, and keeping up. But behind this mask of productivity lies exhaustion. A tired mother smiles for her children, but inside feels like she is drowning. A professional sits in a meeting, nodding along while his chest is heavy and his thoughts race ahead to the next deadline. A student scrolls through pages of notes late at night, eyes blurring, mind buzzing, heart aching with fear of failure. Stress is everywhere, touching every age, every background, every story. It is the silent epidemic of our time. The pain of stress is not just in the body, it is in the soul. Imagine waking each day already bracing for battle. The alarm clock rings, and before feet touch the floor, the heart is already racing with worry. Will I make enough money? Will I meet that deadline? Will I be good enough? The mind becomes a battlefield filled with questions that have no end. Even moments of rest are invaded. A family dinner is interrupted by thoughts of tomorrow's tasks. A walk in the park is overshadowed by regret for yesterday's mistakes. Sleep becomes a fragile negotiation with a mind that refuses to turn off. This constant pressure erodes joy, leaving behind only tension, irritability, and fatigue. Over time, stress hardens into despair, and life itself begins to feel like a burden dot. To understand stress, picture a glass of water. At first, holding it is easy. 1 minute, no problem. 5 minutes, the hand begins to ache. An hour, the arm shakes. A day, and the weight feels unbearable. The water has not changed. What changed was the time we spent holding on. Stress works the same way. The worries we carry may seem small at first, but the longer we hold them, the heavier they become. We rarely set them down. Instead, we clutch them tighter, believing that by holding on, we maintain control. But in truth, it is the holding itself that creates the suffering dot in Buddhist teaching. Stress is a form of suffering, a fire fueled by craving and aversion. We crave certainty, success, approval, safety. We fear loss, rejection, failure, and the unknown. The mind clings to control, trying to shape a world that refuses to be shaped. Stress arises when reality does not match expectation, when life refuses to bend to our will. In this way, stress is not simply the result of too much work or too many problems. It is the result of our relationship to life itself. We resist what is. We grasp at what we wish could be. And in the space between resistance and craving, stress grows. The first step in transforming stress is not to fight it, but to see it. Imagine sitting by a river. Thoughts rush past like flowing water. Most of us jump in, thrashing about, trying to control the current. We push against it, we cling to logs, we scream at the waves. But what if instead we stepped onto the riverbank and simply watched? This is the practice of mindfulness. It is not about stopping the river of thoughts and worries, but about changing our relationship to them. When we observe stress, instead of being consumed by it, we create space. In that space, the fire begins to cool. Mindfulness of breath is a simple but profound doorway. Right now, wherever you are, pause and notice your breathing. Do not try to change it. Simply notice the rise and fall of the chest, the cool air entering the nose, the warm air leaving. Even in the middle of chaos, this breath is always here, always present, always steady. The Buddha taught that returning to the breath anchors us in the present moment, where stress loses its grip. Stress lives in the past and the future, in memories of what went wrong and fears of what may happen. But the breath is only now. By resting in it, even for a few moments, we find refuge. Consider the story of a man carrying a heavy load of firewood on his back. Exhausted, sweating, stumbling, he meets a wise teacher who asks, "Why do you not put down your burden for a moment and rest?" The man replies, "If I put it down, who will carry it? Who will finish the work?" The teacher smiles gently and says, "By resting, you do not abandon the work. You gain the strength to continue." Stress convinces us that pausing is dangerous, that rest is weakness, that letting go is failure. But the truth is the opposite. Rest is the ground from which true strength grows. Letting go is not abandoning life, but reclaiming it in everyday practice. This means creating small islands of peace. Before answering the phone, take one mindful breath. Before sending an email, pause and notice the tension in your shoulders. Before speaking in anger, feel the heat rising in your chest and allow one moment of stillness. These pauses are not dramatic. They do not require incense, robes, or retreats. They require only the courage to stop, to breathe, to notice. Over time, these small acts of mindfulness begin to transform the whole landscape of life. Stress no longer dictates every moment. Instead, awareness creates choice. We respond rather than react. We rest rather than collapse. We live rather than endure. Another teaching that softens stress is the wisdom of impermanence. Every storm ends. Every wave rises and falls. Every night eventually gives way to dawn. Stress convinces us that our problems are permanent, that the pressure will never ease, that we are trapped forever. But nothing in life remains the same. Situations change, emotions change, even our thoughts change moment by moment. When we truly understand impermanence, stress loses its sharp edge. We see that what feels unbearable today may lighten tomorrow. We realize that no emotion, no problem, no challenge can last forever. This perspective does not erase the difficulty, but it opens a door to hope. Think of a mother rocking her crying child. She does not panic at the sound of the wailing. She knows that eventually the child will sleep. In the same way, when we sit with our own inner cries, the worries, the fears, the anger, we can remind ourselves, this too will pass. In that reminder lies peace. Impermanence becomes not a threat, but a promise, a gentle assurance that no storm lasts forever. Yet impermanence also teaches us something deeper. Life is precious because it is fleeting. Stress blinds us to this truth. We are so busy worrying about tomorrow that we forget to taste the food on our plate today, to hear the laughter in the next room, to notice the color of the sky. By remembering impermanence, we wake up to the beauty of the present. Each moment becomes a gift, fragile and unique. Stress cannot thrive where gratitude grows. Still, the journey is not easy. Old habits return. The mind keeps pulling us into the future or dragging us into the past. But every moment offers a chance to begin again. The Buddha once said, "Drop by drop, the water jar is filled." In the same way, drop by drop, breath by breath, step by step, our practice builds. We do not defeat stress in one battle. We transform it slowly, patiently, gently, until one day we look back and realize the fire has cooled, the burden has lightened, the heart has softened, and so we arrive at a doorway. We have seen the pain of stress, the exhaustion it brings, the illusions it creates. We have explored the beginnings of a solution through mindfulness, breath, and impermanence. But stress has deeper roots still. To truly free ourselves, we must look not only at the storm on the surface, but also at the currents beneath. What are the stories we tell ourselves? What are the hidden expectations and fears that keep stress alive? This is where our journey continues, moving from the outer symptoms to the inner causes. From the visible flames to the hidden fuel. Stress does not arise in isolation. It is rooted in the stories we tell ourselves, the expectations we carry, and the hidden fears that shape our days. Imagine a person walking through life with an invisible script written long ago. I must succeed, or I am worthless. I must please everyone, or I will be abandoned. I must always be strong, or I will be humiliated. These lines may not be spoken aloud, yet they whisper constantly in the background of the mind. Each expectation becomes a chain, each fear becomes a weight, and together they create the inner prison of stress. The world outside is challenging, but it is the world inside, the relentless demands of our own mind, that exhausts us most. Think of a deer running through the forest. The sound of a snapping branch makes it leap, heart pounding, muscles tense, ready to escape a predator. In that moment, stress is useful. It sharpens the senses, fuels the body, and protects life. But once the danger passes, the deer shakes its body, releases the tension, and returns to grazing in peace. Humans, however, often do not release. We replay the snapping branch again and again in our minds. We imagine predators that are not there. We worry about tomorrow's dangers before they even appear. This unending vigilance keeps the body locked in tension, the mind in constant alarm. Stress, meant to protect us for a moment, becomes a permanent state of being. Why do we cling to these scripts of fear and expectation? Because we believe they keep us safe. If I worry enough, maybe I can prevent disaster. If I push hard enough, maybe I will avoid failure. If I please everyone, maybe I will never be alone. But this is an illusion. Worry does not prevent tomorrow's storm. It only steals today's peace. Pushing harder does not guarantee success. It often guarantees burnout. Pleasing everyone does not bring love. It often erases our true self. In chasing safety, we create suffering. In trying to control life, we lose the very freedom we crave. The Buddha taught that suffering arises from attachment and ignorance, clinging to what is unstable, and misunderstanding the nature of reality. Stress is a form of this suffering. We cling to control, forgetting that life is change. We cling to perfection, forgetting that imperfection is the natural way of all things. We cling to approval, forgetting that no one's opinion is fixed forever. Stress is the child of our clinging. The more tightly we hold, the more it grows. Freedom begins when we loosen our grip. One way to loosen is through the practice of compassion. Stress makes us harsh with ourselves, harsh with others. We push, criticize, demand, and judge. But compassion softens the heart. Imagine speaking to yourself the way you would to a dear friend. When your friend is tired, you do not say, "You are weak. You must do more." You say, "Rest. You have carried much. You are enough." When your friend makes a mistake, you do not say, "You are a failure." You say, "Mistakes are human. You are still worthy." By turning this voice of compassion inward, we begin to dissolve the sharp edges of stress. The inner critic loses power, and the inner healer awakens. Compassion also extends outward. Stress often comes from constant comparison, measuring ourselves against others, fearing judgment, competing for approval. But when we see others not as rivals, but as fellow travelers, stress shifts into empathy. The coworker who frustrates you may also be struggling under heavy burdens. The stranger who snaps at you may be carrying unseen pain. When we recognize the shared struggle of humanity, our hearts soften. We stop taking every word and action as an attack. We begin to breathe more freely, knowing we are not alone in this storm. Another key teaching is letting go of control. Imagine standing in the ocean, waves crashing against your chest. If you stiffen, resist, and try to hold your ground against the water, you will be knocked over. But if you soften your knees, move with the waves, and allow yourself to float, you find balance. Life is like the ocean, unpredictable, powerful, and beyond control. Stress arises when we try to resist every wave, when we demand that the sea obey us. Peace arises when we learn to flow, to bend, to ride the waves with trust. This does not mean passivity. It means wisdom, the wisdom to act where we can and to release where we cannot. Consider the teaching of the second arrow. When pain strikes us, it is like an arrow piercing the skin. That first arrow may be unavoidable, a lost job, an illness, a harsh word. But then we fire a second arrow into ourselves, worrying endlessly, blaming, regretting, imagining disaster. The second arrow often hurts more than the first. Stress is largely the second arrow, the suffering we add to life's inevitable challenges. By noticing when we are adding this second arrow, we can choose to put down the bow. We cannot always prevent the first arrow, but we can stop wounding ourselves again and again. Daily practice is the key to transformation. It is not enough to hear these truths once. They must be lived. Begin each day with 3 conscious breaths before rising from bed. Throughout the day, pause and ask, am I holding on too tightly right now? Can I soften? Can I release? At night, instead of replaying worries, reflect with gratitude. One small thing that brought you joy, one kindness you received, one lesson you learned. These simple practices train the mind to rest in awareness, compassion, and presence. Over time, the automatic habits of stress lose their grip. Stress thrives in speed. The modern world demands faster, louder, more. But the soul heals in slowness. Walking slowly, eating slowly, speaking slowly, all become acts of resistance against the tyranny of stress. In slowing down, we reclaim our lives. We begin to taste food again, to hear the song of birds, to feel the warmth of a hug. Stress feeds on distraction. Presence starves it. Each moment of slowness becomes a victory, a declaration that life is not just about surviving, but about truly living. There will be days when stress feels overwhelming, days when the old habits return, when the river of thoughts sweeps you away, when the fire burns hot. On those days, remember, even falling into stress is part of the path. Awareness does not mean never stumbling. It means noticing when we stumble and gently standing up again. Every breath is a new beginning. Every pause is a fresh chance. The practice is not about perfection, but about persistence returning, again and again, to the breath, to compassion, to letting go. As we close this exploration of stress, let us carry forward 3 truths. First, stress is not inevitable. It is a habit of mind that can be transformed. Second, the tools of transformation are always available in the breath, in compassion, in the willingness to release control. Third, every step, no matter how small, matters. Drop by drop, the jar fills. Moment by moment, the heart heals. In this healing, we discover that life is not a burden to endure, but a gift to be embraced. And so, as one burden lightens, we turn to the next. For stress is often tied to money, the endless chase for security, the fear of not having enough, the belief that wealth will finally bring peace. But just as stress is not solved by more striving, money is not solved by more accumulation. There is a deeper truth waiting to be uncovered. Let us now step into that next chapter, the pain of money and the freedom that wisdom can bring. Money is one of the greatest sources of stress in modern life. For many people, the thought of money begins the moment they wake and lingers until they finally fall asleep. Bills pile up on the kitchen table. Credit card balances grow heavier each month. Rent, mortgage, insurance, tuition, the list never ends. Even those who earn well often feel like they are drowning. The numbers in the bank account never seem to be enough, and the fear of losing what has been gained is as heavy as the fear of not having enough in the first place. Money has become more than paper and numbers. It has become a symbol of security, status, identity, and even self-worth. And because of this, it carries an immense emotional weight that few can escape. Imagine a man who works long hours at a job he dislikes. He rises before dawn, sits in traffic, and spends his day in a windowless office, staring at screens and attending endless meetings. He tells himself it is worth it because the paycheck keeps the roof over his family's head. Yet when he comes home, he is too exhausted to enjoy the home he worked so hard to pay for. His children long for his presence, not the toys he buys them. His partner longs for conversation, not the credit card that pays for dinner. But he believes he cannot stop because money has become the measure of his worth as a provider. In chasing money, he loses the very life money was meant to support. On the other side is the young woman burdened with debt. She studied hard, believing education would open doors, but now the doors feel locked by the chains of loans. Every paycheck disappears before it arrives, swallowed by interest and necessity. She scrolls through social media and sees friends traveling, shopping, enjoying luxuries she cannot afford. Shame creeps into her heart. She feels like she is falling behind, like life itself is slipping through her fingers. To her, money is not a tool but a judge, constantly reminding her of her failures. Then there is the wealthy business owner. He has more money than he could ever spend, yet he lies awake at night, checking markets, fearing loss. The bigger the house, the greater the mortgage. The more investments, the more anxiety about their stability. Money has not freed him. It has trapped him in a golden cage. He cannot enjoy what he has because he is always afraid of losing it. He cannot give generously because he fears scarcity. He cannot stop working because money has become his identity. For him, as for so many, money is not the end of stress, but its endless fuel. Why is money so powerful over the human heart? Because it represents survival. In ancient times, survival depended on food, water, shelter, and the safety of the tribe. Today, these needs are translated into dollars. Without money, we fear hunger, homelessness, and rejection. So money becomes not just a means, but a substitute for life itself. This is why its grip feels so absolute. And yet, like water held in a fist, the tighter we grasp, the less peace we find. Money cannot buy freedom from suffering. It can provide comfort, but not contentment. It can buy luxury, but not peace of mind. It can secure possessions, but not lasting happiness. This truth is seen again and again. People with little money can sometimes be full of joy, while people with great wealth can be deeply miserable. Buddhist wisdom addresses this directly. The Buddha did not say that money is evil. He recognized it as a tool, a means of supporting life. But he warned of attachment, of greed, of the endless hunger that money cannot satisfy. He told the story of a man who drinks salt water to quench his thirst. The more he drinks, the thirstier he becomes. In the same way, the more we chase money as the answer to our suffering, the deeper the suffering becomes. Money is not the problem. Our relationship to it is. One of the core teachings is the middle way, between poverty that leads to despair and greed that leads to obsession lies balance. Money can meet our needs, but it should not become our master. It should support life, not consume it. This balance is not measured in numbers, but in intention. Why do we seek money? Is it to protect life or to inflate ego? Is it to care for family or to dominate others? Is it to create freedom or to build walls of fear? By examining our motivation, we see clearly whether money is a servant or a tyrant. Another teaching is generosity, or dana. Generosity breaks the chains of fear. When we give even a little, we prove to ourselves that money does not own us. We discover the joy of sharing, the lightness of release. Generosity does not mean recklessness. It does not mean giving away everything we have. It means loosening the grip of attachment, recognizing that the flow of giving creates more peace than the hoarding of wealth. Imagine holding a seed. If you clutch it tightly, it remains only a seed. But if you release it into the soil, it grows into a tree that bears fruit. In the same way, when money is shared with wisdom and compassion, it multiplies not in numbers, but in meaning. There is also the practice of contentment. The Buddha said, "Contentment is the greatest wealth." In a society that constantly whispers, more, 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 contentment is radical. It is the courage to say, "I have enough." Enough does not mean perfection. It does not mean every desire is satisfied. It means recognizing that life is already whole in this moment. When we live with contentment, money no longer defines us. We enjoy what we have without being enslaved by what we lack. We step off the treadmill of endless craving and find peace in the simple blessings already present. Picture a monk with a single bowl. Each morning he walks quietly through the village, receiving food offered by strangers. He owns almost nothing, yet his heart is full. He eats what is given with gratitude, rests under trees, and teaches peace to those who seek it. While we may not live as monks, the image reminds us of a profound truth. Happiness does not require endless possessions. It requires freedom from craving. Even in the middle of modern life, with bills and jobs and families, we can practice this spirit of simplicity, choosing gratitude over greed, presence over pressure, balance over obsession. Money itself is not the enemy. It is a mirror. It reflects our fears, our desires, our attachments. If we are anxious, money becomes a symbol of insecurity. If we are greedy, money becomes an endless hunger. If we are compassionate, money becomes a tool for healing. The transformation does not lie in the numbers, but in the heart. When the heart changes, our relationship with money changes. Stress fades, fear loosens, and life feels lighter. Yet money's grip is deep, and the journey of transformation takes time. It is not enough to hear these truths once. We must practice them daily, in small choices. Pausing before buying something unnecessary, giving a little even when we feel fear, whispering to ourselves, "I have enough," when craving arises. These drops of practice fill the jar of wisdom, and slowly the chains of money loosen. As we stand here, having seen the pain money creates and the wisdom that can transform it, another question arises. If stress and money weigh so heavily on modern lives, what about the relationships that shape our hearts? For even with financial stability, many lie awake at night in loneliness, in conflict, in longing for connection. To understand the suffering of the human heart, we must now turn to the bonds we form with others, bonds of love, of family, of friendship that can bring both joy and deep pain. Money touches almost every corner of our lives, but its impact is not only financial. It seeps into our emotions, our relationships, and even our sense of self-worth. Many arguments between couples are not about love, but about money, how to save it, how to earn more of it. Friends grow distant when money creates envy or resentment. Families fracture over inheritance or debt. Even within ourselves, the way we relate to money often mirrors the way we relate to life. Do we cling with fear? Do we chase with greed? Or do we trust with balance? In this way, money is not just a currency of trade. It is a currency of meaning, reflecting who we believe we are and what we believe matters. Think of the worker who feels ashamed when he cannot afford the same lifestyle as his peers. He avoids gatherings because he fears judgment. His self-worth becomes tied not to his kindness, his integrity, or his wisdom, but to the size of his paycheck. This is one of the most dangerous illusions of modern life. The idea that our value as human beings is measured by our bank accounts. When we fall into this illusion, we forget that money was created to serve life, not to define it. The Buddha often reminded his followers that true wealth is not measured in gold or possessions, but in virtues like compassion, patience, and understanding. These are treasures that no thief can steal, no market can collapse, and no death can take away. Still, The grip of comparison is strong. Advertisements, social media, and cultural pressure all whisper that happiness is found in bigger houses, faster cars, fancier clothes, and endless consumption. The problem is not desire itself. Desire is natural. The problem is attachment to desire, the belief that we cannot be happy until every want is satisfied. Yet desire is endless. The moment one is fulfilled, another appears. It is like trying to fill a cup with a hole at the bottom. No matter how much we pour in, it never feels full. This is why people with great wealth often still feel restless. The cup is not broken because of lack of money. It is broken because of the endless craving that money cannot fix. The practice of mindfulness reveals this truth clearly. Next time you feel the urge to buy something, pause and breathe. Ask yourself, is this a true need or just a passing craving? Will this purchase bring lasting peace or only temporary relief? Often, we realize that what we crave is not the object itself, but the feeling it promises comfort, approval, excitement, belonging. When we see this clearly, we can meet the real need in healthier ways, seeking connection instead of consumption, gratitude instead of comparison, rest instead of endless work. Money loses its power when we see through the illusions it carries. Another powerful practice is gratitude. Stress about money often comes from focusing on what we lack rather than what we have. We see the unpaid bills, but not the roof that already shelters us. We see the debt, but not the food that already fills our stomach. Gratitude shifts the focus from scarcity to abundance. It reminds us that even in difficulty, there is enough to honor and appreciate. Each night, pausing to name 3 things you are grateful for, no matter how small, can rewire the heart away from fear and toward peace. Gratitude does not erase financial challenges, but it gives us the strength to face them with courage and hope. At the same time, wisdom teaches us to live within our means. Many people are trapped not only by poverty, but by the illusion of wealth created through debt. The constant desire to appear successful leads to credit cards filled with charges, houses larger than needed, cars beyond our budget. This kind of living creates endless stress. Simplicity, on the other hand, creates freedom. To live simply is not to live poorly. It is to live wisely, with clarity about what truly matters. When we let go of unnecessary consumption, we discover that less is often more. Less debt, more peace. Less clutter, more space. Less chasing, more living. But simplicity is not always easy. It requires courage to go against the tide of society. It requires strength to say no when the world shouts yes. Yet in that courage lies liberation. Many who choose simplicity downsizing their homes, reducing their expenses, focusing on experiences over possessions report a surprising discovery: joy. Joy not from having more, but from being free. Joy from no longer being enslaved by endless bills and endless desires. Joy from knowing that enough is truly enough. Generosity also plays a crucial role in healing our relationship with money. Fear tells us to hold tightly, to save every penny, to protect ourselves at all costs. But generosity teaches us that giving creates abundance. When we share with others, we experience the deep truth that happiness grows when divided. A smile, a meal, a small donation, each act of generosity breaks the grip of fear and awakens the joy of connection. Generosity reminds us that money is not the ultimate treasure. The real treasure is love, kindness, and the bonds of humanity that money can never buy. The Buddha often told his followers that the richest person is not the one who has the most, but the one who needs the least. This teaching is not an invitation to reject money entirely. It is an invitation to transform our relationship with it. Instead of making money our master, we make it our servant. Instead of seeing it as the source of identity, we see it as a tool for compassion. Instead of measuring our worth by wealth, we measure it by wisdom and love. In this transformation lies freedom. So what does this look like in daily life? It might mean creating a budget, not just to track spending, but to align spending with values, choosing to spend less on things that do not matter and more on what brings true joy. It might mean resisting the urge to compare our lives to others, remembering that every photo online hides its own unseen struggles. It might mean pausing before buying, asking if this purchase serves life or merely feeds craving. And it might mean giving, even in small ways, to remind ourselves that money flows best when shared. Money will always be part of human life. It is necessary, it is practical, it is useful, but it need not be a source of endless suffering. By practicing mindfulness, gratitude, simplicity, and generosity, we can transform money from a source of fear into a source of freedom. The chains loosen, the heart softens, and life becomes lighter. We realize that true wealth is not found in what we own, but in how we live, how we love, and how we let go. And as we see this truth, a new doorway opens. For even if money is balanced, there is still another source of deep human pain: relationships. Love, friendship, family all bring the greatest joys and also the deepest wounds. The arguments, the betrayals, the loneliness, the longing for connection that never seems fully satisfied. These are struggles as universal as stress and money. To continue our journey, we must now turn to the heart itself, to the ties that bind us to one another, and discover how wisdom and compassion can heal them. Relationships are the threads that weave our lives together. They are the bonds between parent and child, partners, friends, co-workers, and communities. When they are strong and loving, they bring joy, support, and meaning. When they are broken or strained, they bring some of the deepest suffering a human being can endure. More than money, more than status, more than success, relationships shape the quality of our days and the health of our hearts. And yet, in the modern world, many people feel more disconnected than ever before, surrounded by others, but still lonely, connected online, but isolated in spirit, yearning for intimacy, but afraid of vulnerability. We find ourselves in a paradox, craving love while struggling to sustain it. Think of the couple who begins their journey filled with passion. At first, every word and gesture feels magical. But as time passes, stress, expectations, and unspoken wounds begin to surface. Arguments replace laughter. Silence grows heavier. The love is still there, but it is buried under layers of resentment and misunderstanding. They want to reconnect, but neither knows how. They sit across from each other at the dinner table, physically together, but emotionally worlds apart. This is one of the great pains of relationships, not the absence of love, but the inability to express and nurture it. Consider the adult child caring for aging parents. On one hand, there is love and gratitude for all the sacrifices made. On the other, there is frustration, exhaustion, and sometimes anger at the constant demands. Guilt mixes with resentment. Tenderness mixes with irritation. The heart feels pulled in opposite directions, and the weight of duty can become overwhelming. In this space, relationships become not a source of joy, but a source of stress, leaving the caregiver drained and conflicted. Then there are friendships that fade. Perhaps distance, time, or unspoken conflict creates silence where once there was laughter. The friend who knew your secrets no longer answers your calls. The bond you thought unbreakable is now only a memory. Such losses leave invisible scars, reminding us how fragile even the strongest connections can be. They bring loneliness, a quiet ache that lingers in the background of daily life. At the core of many relationship struggles is attachment and expectation. We often enter relationships not simply to give love, but to receive security, validation, and fulfillment. We carry silent demands. You must make me happy. You must understand me perfectly. You must never disappoint me. When these expectations are not met, disappointment turns to resentment. But no person can ever meet all the needs of another. To place that burden on someone is to set both hearts up for suffering. This does not mean love is impossible. It means love must be rooted in reality, not in illusion. Buddhist teachings on relationships are both gentle and radical. They remind us that every person we meet is impermanent, changing moment by moment, just like us. Clinging to the idea of a permanent, unchanging partner or friend creates suffering because it denies the truth of impermanence. Love is not a static possession, but a living process. It requires awareness, patience, and constant renewal. Just as a garden must be watered daily, relationships must be nurtured with presence and care. When we forget this, love wilts. When we remember, love blooms again and again. One of the most powerful practices in relationships is deep listening. Most of us listen, not to understand, but to reply. While the other speaks, our mind is busy preparing arguments, defenses, or judgments. But true listening is an act of compassion. It means setting aside the urge to fix or control and simply receiving the other person's words with an open heart. Imagine sitting with a friend who is in pain. Instead of rushing to offer advice, you pause, breathe, and listen fully. You notice not just the words, but the emotions beneath them, the tremble in the voice, the unshed tears in the eyes. This kind of listening heals. It tells the other, I see you. I hear you. You matter. In such moments, relationships deepen, even without solutions. Equally important is mindful speech. Words are powerful. They can wound deeply or heal profoundly. In the heat of anger, we often say things we regret, words that cannot be taken back. The Buddha taught that right speech is truthful, kind, and timely. Before speaking, we can pause and ask, is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? This pause is small but transformative. It prevents harm and opens the door to healing communication. A gentle word can soften anger. A sincere apology can rebuild trust. A clear request can prevent misunderstanding. When we speak with mindfulness, relationships shift from conflict to connection. Another practice is loving kindness meditation, or metta. In this practice, we silently repeat phrases of goodwill for ourselves and others. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I be safe. May I live with ease. Then we extend the same wishes to loved ones, to neutral people, even to those with whom we are in conflict. Over time, this practice softens the heart, dissolves resentment, and opens the possibility of forgiveness. It does not mean we ignore harm or accept abuse. It means we release the poison of hatred from our own hearts, creating space for peace. Forgiveness is one of the most challenging but liberating aspects of relationships. To forgive does not mean to forget or to excuse harm. It means to free ourselves from the chains of resentment. Holding on to anger is like carrying a burning coal, hoping to throw it at another, but all the while burning our own hands. Forgiveness is the act of setting the coal down. It is a gift not only to others, but to ourselves. It creates space for healing, whether or not the relationship continues. Relationships also require balance between self and other. Many people lose themselves in the name of love, sacrificing their needs, values, and identity. Others harden themselves, refusing to compromise or share. True love is not self-erasure nor selfishness. It is interbeing, the recognition that we are deeply connected, yet still unique. Like two trees growing side by side, healthy relationships allow each to grow strong while sharing the same soil. Boundaries are essential. They are not walls but doors, allowing love to flow freely without fear of suffocation or exploitation. Yet, even with wisdom and practice, relationships will bring pain. Loved ones will disappoint us. Friends will drift away. Partners will argue. Death will eventually separate us from those we hold most dear. This truth is unavoidable, but instead of fearing it, we can embrace it as part of life's fabric. Suffering in relationships can become a teacher. It shows us where we cling, where we expect permanence, where we demand control. By observing these patterns with awareness, we learn to love more freely, more compassionately, more wisely. In modern society, loneliness has become widespread. Despite being surrounded by people, many feel isolated. Social media gives the illusion of connection, but often deepens the sense of emptiness. The antidote is genuine presence. To sit with another, to share silence, to look into their eyes without distraction. These simple acts are powerful medicine. Presence says, "You are not alone." In this way, relationships do not have to be perfect to be healing. They only have to be real. As we reflect on the struggles and wisdom of relationships, we see that the heart is both fragile and resilient. It breaks, but it also heals. It suffers, but it also grows. Through mindfulness, compassion, deep listening, and loving kindness, we can transform even painful relationships into paths of growth. We may not control others, but we can transform the way we show up, and in doing so, we transform the relationship itself. And so, with this understanding, we begin to see that relationships, while essential, are also mirrors. They reflect our inner fears and longings, just as money did. They reveal how we cling, how we crave, how we resist. To go deeper, we must now turn to one of the most pervasive struggles of the human mind: anxiety. Anxiety often hides beneath stress, money, and relationships, fueling them all. It is the restless voice that never quiets, the shadow that follows us everywhere. To continue our journey, we must look directly into the nature of anxiety and learn how to walk with it in peace. Relationships are not only about joy and love, they are also about wounds that cut deeply. Many of the scars people carry are not from strangers, but from those closest to them. A harsh word from a parent in childhood echoes for decades. A betrayal by a partner shatters trust, making it hard to open the heart again. A friend's silence at a moment of need lingers as a quiet ache. These wounds shape the way we see ourselves and the way we relate to others. Without awareness, they become patterns we repeat. The child who felt unworthy grows into the adult who clings desperately to love or avoids intimacy altogether. The partner who once felt abandoned may become controlling, demanding constant reassurance. Pain that is not transformed is often transmitted. The Buddha taught that suffering is part of life, but it can also be the doorway to wisdom. When we look deeply at our wounds, we begin to see not only the pain, but also the craving and aversion beneath them. We crave unconditional love, but no human being can fulfill every longing. We resist the pain of disappointment, but life inevitably brings it. By seeing this clearly, we begin to soften. We understand that our suffering is not unique, but shared. Every person we meet carries invisible wounds. This recognition opens the heart to compassion, not only for others, but also for ourselves. Self-compassion is especially vital in relationships. Many people blame themselves for every conflict. If only I were smarter, more beautiful, more successful, more patient, then they would love me. This inner narrative is a prison. It keeps us trapped in shame and fear. Self-compassion offers another path. It says, I am human. I am imperfect. I am worthy of love even with my flaws. When we treat ourselves with kindness, we create the foundation for healthier relationships. We stop demanding that others heal wounds we refuse to acknowledge. We stop settling for relationships that harm us. We begin to show up with honesty and courage. Boundaries are a natural expression of self-compassion. Too often, People believe that love means sacrifice without limit. But love without boundaries is not love. It is self-erasure. Boundaries do not push people away. They create the space in which genuine connection can grow. Saying no when we mean no, asking for what we truly need, walking away from harm. These are acts of love for ourselves and ultimately for others. A relationship rooted in truth, even when difficult, is stronger than one built on silence and resentment. Another key teaching is non-attachment. Non-attachment does not mean indifference or coldness. It means loving fully without trying to possess or control. Imagine holding a bird in your hand. If you grip too tightly, you harm it. If you open your hand completely, it flies away. But if you hold gently, with care, the bird may rest with you for a time. Relationships are the same. We cannot force someone to stay, to change, or to meet all our needs. We can only love them as they are, moment by moment. This gentle holding creates freedom for us and for them. It transforms relationships from prisons of expectation into gardens of trust. Yet even in the best relationships, conflict will arise. Two people with two histories, two perspectives, and two sets of needs cannot always agree. The difference between relationships that endure and those that collapse is not the absence of conflict, but the presence of skillful response. When anger rises, mindfulness teaches us to pause, to breathe, to cool the fire before it spreads. When misunderstanding occurs, deep listening invites us to seek clarity rather than victory. When wounds surface, compassion allows us to hold pain without judgment. Conflict becomes not a threat, but an opportunity for growth. Still, not all relationships can or should be preserved. Some are built on harm, abuse, or exploitation. In such cases, wisdom teaches us that letting go is not failure but freedom. To walk away from harm is not to abandon love, but to honor it love for ourselves, love for truth, love for the possibility of healthier connections. The Buddha never taught passive endurance of suffering. He taught discernment, the ability to see clearly what supports life and what destroys it. Sometimes the most loving act is to release. Loneliness, too, is part of the relationship landscape. Even surrounded by people, many feel unseen, unheard, unloved. This loneliness is not only about the absence of others. It is about the absence of connection with ourselves, with the present moment, with the reality of our shared humanity. Loneliness whispers that we are separate, cut off, unique in our suffering. But mindfulness reveals the opposite. Every human heart longs for love. Every human heart fears rejection. In this shared longing, we are never truly alone. To sit quietly, to breathe deeply, to feel the beating of one's heart is to reconnect with the vast web of life. Loneliness softens when we realize we belong not just to one person, but to the whole world. Community is a vital remedy. In Buddhist practice, the Sangha, the community of practitioners, is one of the three jewels. Alone, practice is difficult. Together, it becomes possible. The same is true for relationships in daily life. We need not one perfect partner or friend, but a web of connections family. Friends, neighbors, colleagues, spiritual companions. Each relationship offers something unique. Together, they create resilience. When one bond falters, others sustain us. Cultivating community with kindness and openness eases the burden of loneliness and enriches the fabric of life. Relationships, then, are both challenge and gift. They reveal our deepest wounds, but also our deepest capacities for love. They demand honesty, patience, and humility. They invite us to practice mindfulness, compassion, forgiveness, and non-attachment. When we embrace these teachings, relationships transform. They may not become perfect, but they become paths of awakening. Each conflict becomes a mirror. Each joy becomes a reminder of impermanence. Each bond becomes an opportunity to practice love that is both tender and free. As we leave the theme of relationships, we see how closely it is tied to other struggles. Stress, money, relationships all are fueled by a restless mind that never stops worrying, fearing, comparing, and clinging. Beneath them all lies anxiety, the constant hum of unease that shapes modern life. Anxiety is the shadow behind every thought of what if. It is the tightening in the chest, the racing of the heart, the endless scenarios of disaster that never come. To continue our journey, we must now turn directly toward anxiety, understanding its roots and discovering how Buddhist wisdom can transform it into peace. Anxiety is the silent companion of modern life. It lingers in the background of countless days, sometimes whispering softly, sometimes screaming so loudly that it drowns out every other thought. Unlike stress, which often responds to external pressures, anxiety lives inside the mind itself. It is the constant question of what if? What if I fail? What if I get sick? What if I lose everything? What if the worst happens? These questions rarely lead to answers, but they fill the heart with unease and the body with tension. Anxiety is like a shadow that follows us everywhere, coloring every experience. No matter how bright the sun may shine, imagine sitting in a quiet room, nothing threatening, nothing urgent, yet your heart pounds, your stomach tightens, and your thoughts race with images of disaster. This is the nature of anxiety, suffering created not by what is happening, but by what might happen. It is the fear of the future invading the present. For many, anxiety is so constant that it feels like part of their identity. They say, "I am an anxious person," as if anxiety defines who they are. But in truth, anxiety is not who we are. It is a passing state of mind, a habit of thought, a cloud in the sky of consciousness. The problem is not that anxiety arises. The problem is that we believe its stories. The stories of anxiety are powerful. The mind paints vivid pictures of catastrophe, the job interview gone wrong, the diagnosis that changes everything, the rejection that breaks the heart. These images feel so real that the body reacts as if they are happening now. The nervous system floods with adrenaline, muscles tighten, breath shortens, sleep disappears. The body cannot tell the difference between imagination and reality. This is why anxiety is so exhausting. We fight battles that never happen. We run from predators that do not exist. We suffer in anticipation of pain that may never come. The Buddha taught that the root of suffering is ignorance, our failure to see reality as it is. Anxiety thrives on this ignorance. It convinces us that the future is certain, that disaster is inevitable, that we must prepare for every possibility. But the truth is, the future is uncertain, and it always will be. Life is impermanent. Anything can change at any moment. Anxiety resists this truth. It clings to control, demanding certainty in a world where certainty does not exist. This resistance is the fuel that keeps anxiety alive. So how do we walk with anxiety? The first step is awareness. Instead of being swept away by anxious thoughts, we pause and notice. This is anxiety. This is fear speaking. By naming it, we create space. The thought, "What if I fail?" is no longer the voice of reality. It is the voice of anxiety. That small shift is powerful. It allows us to step back and see anxiety for what it is. A passing mental event, not an ultimate truth. Like clouds drifting across the sky, anxious thoughts come and go. They are not the sky itself. Breath is the anchor that holds us when anxiety tries to sweep us away. In moments of panic, when the mind spins and the body trembles, bringing attention to the breath is like finding a rope in a storm. Inhale slowly, exhale gently. Feel the air moving in and out. Each breath is proof of the present moment, proof that right now we are alive, safe, breathing. The mind races toward the future, but the breath calls us back to now. Anxiety cannot survive long in the presence of steady awareness of the present. It feeds on what might happen, but it weakens when we rest in what is happening. Another powerful practice is grounding the senses. Anxiety pulls us into imagined worlds, but the senses bring us back to reality. Touch the surface of the chair beneath you. Notice the sounds in the room. Look at the colors around you. Smell the air. Each sense is a doorway back to the present. When anxiety spins endless stories, the senses remind us, right here, right now, this is what is real. This practice does not erase anxiety, but it reduces its power. It breaks the cycle of thought and returns us to the safety of the moment. Buddhism also teaches the practice of non-resistance. Most people fight anxiety, trying to push it away, deny it, or drown it out with distraction. But resistance often strengthens what we resist. It is like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. The harder we push, the more it surges back up. Instead of resisting, we can try allowing. When anxiety arises, we say gently, "Here you are. I see you." We sit with it, breathe with it, even offer compassion to it. This may feel strange at first, but it is deeply healing. Anxiety loses much of its power when we stop treating it as an enemy and begin treating it as a visitor. Consider the story of a monk who is often visited by fear. Instead of fighting it, he would bow to it, saying, "I see you, fear. Thank you for reminding me to wake up." In bowing to fear, he transformed his relationship with it. Fear became a teacher rather than a tormentor. Anxiety can be the same. It can remind us of our longing for control, our resistance to uncertainty, our vulnerability as human beings. By bowing to it, by acknowledging it, we learn from it. Compassion is essential in working with anxiety. Many people criticize themselves harshly for being anxious. They say, "I should be stronger. I should not feel this way." This self-criticism adds a second layer of suffering. Anxiety is already hard. Self-blame makes it harder. Compassion says, "I am human. Anxiety is part of being alive. I will meet this fear with kindness." Imagine holding a frightened child. You do not scold the child for being afraid. You comfort them, reassure them, hold them gently. This is how we can hold our own anxiety. By offering ourselves the kindness we would offer another, we create space for healing. Still, anxiety is not easy to live with. It can return again and again, even after years of practice. But each time it returns, it offers another chance to practice awareness, presence, compassion, and non-attachment. Over time, anxiety no longer controls us. It may visit, but it does not rule. It may whisper, but it no longer dictates our choices. We begin to live more freely, more fully, less bound by fear of the future. And yet, anxiety is often tied to deeper roots, the stories we carry from childhood, the traumas we have endured, the unconscious patterns that shape our reactions. To truly transform anxiety, we must look beneath the surface into the conditioning of the mind itself. These hidden layers often drive our fears without our awareness. To continue our journey, we must now explore not only the experience of anxiety, but the deeper conditioning that feeds it. Anxiety is not only about racing thoughts or tense bodies. At its core, it is rooted in deep conditioning, the patterns of fear, worry, and expectation that have been etched into the mind over years. These patterns often begin in childhood, when we learn what is safe and unsafe, what is acceptable and unacceptable. A child who grows up hearing, "Be careful, the world is dangerous," carries that fear into adulthood, always expecting disaster. A child who's told, "You must succeed to be loved," grows into an adult who trembles at every possibility of failure. Anxiety is not simply a random visitor. It is the echo of old voices, the shadow of old experiences. To truly free ourselves, We must see these roots clearly. The Buddha described these patterns as samskaras mental, formations shaped by repeated thoughts and emotions. Like grooves in a path, they become deeper with every step, guiding us unconsciously. Anxiety is one of these grooves. Each time we worry, each time we imagine disaster, we reinforce the habit. Soon, the mind runs automatically toward anxiety, as water runs downhill. This is why anxiety can feel so overwhelming, even when we know logically that our fears are exaggerated. The mind is simply following its old grooves. But here lies hope. Grooves can be changed. With mindfulness, with practice, we can carve new pathways. Instead of feeding anxious thoughts, we can redirect attention to the present moment. Instead of rehearsing disaster, we can practice gratitude. Instead of clinging to control, we can cultivate trust. Each small shift is like laying down a new path. At first, it feels unfamiliar, even difficult. But over time, the new path becomes clearer, and the old one fades. Transformation does not happen overnight, but it does happen, step by step. One powerful way to work with these patterns is through the practice of observing thoughts without identification. Imagine sitting by a road, watching cars pass. Each car is a thought. Some are anxious, some are neutral, some are joyful. Normally, we chase after the anxious cars, running with them until we are exhausted. But in meditation, we simply sit and watch. We see a thought arise, we acknowledge it, and we let it pass. Here is worry. Here is fear. Here is hope. We do not chase. We do not cling. We do not resist. We realize that we are not the cars. We are the observer, the awareness through which they pass. This simple shift changes everything. Anxiety no longer defines us. It becomes a passing cloud in the vast sky of awareness. Another practice is to bring compassion directly into the anxious state. When the heart races and the chest tightens, instead of fighting the sensations, we place a gentle hand over the heart and whisper, "It's okay. You are safe. You are loved." This may feel awkward at first, but it retrains the nervous system. The body begins to associate anxiety, not with more fear, but with comfort. Slowly, the cycle of panic weakens. We learn that we can feel anxiety without collapsing. We can hold it, breathe with it, and even soothe it with kindness. It is also important to recognize the role of control. Anxiety thrives on the illusion that we can predict and prevent every danger. The mind scans the future, searching for certainty, demanding guarantees. But life offers no guarantees. Control is limited, and uncertainty is inevitable. The Buddha invited us to face this truth directly. Instead of fighting uncertainty, we can practice surrender. This does not mean passivity. It means accepting that not everything can be known or controlled, and finding peace in that acceptance. When we stop demanding certainty, anxiety loses much of its fuel. We begin to live with trust, not blind trust that everything will be easy, but deep trust that we have the capacity to meet whatever arises. Community also plays a vital role in healing anxiety. Alone, our fears grow larger. In the silence of isolation, worries echo endlessly. But when we share our fears with others, their weight lessens. A friend who listens with compassion, a support group that understands, a community of practice that offers presence, all these remind us that we are not alone in our struggles. The Buddha emphasized the importance of Sangha, the community of practitioners, because healing often happens in connection. Anxiety thrives in isolation, but softens in shared humanity. And yet, even with awareness, compassion, impermanence, and community, anxiety may still arise. This is not failure. It is simply part of being human. The goal is not to eliminate anxiety completely, but to transform our relationship with it. Instead of fearing it, we greet it. Instead of fighting it, we sit with it. Instead of letting it control us, we learn from it. Anxiety becomes not a prison, but a teacher, pointing us toward deeper truths about impermanence, control, and compassion. Imagine a person standing in a storm. The wind howls, the rain pours, the thunder shakes the sky. At first, they panic, running, hiding, screaming at the storm. But eventually, they realize they cannot stop the storm. They can only stand, breathe, and let it pass. In that moment, they find strength. They discover that the storm is not endless, and they are not powerless. This is the transformation of anxiety. The storm may still come, but it no longer defines us. We stand, we breathe, we endure, and we grow as we close this exploration of anxiety. We see how it connects with every part of modern life stress, money, relationships. It is the thread that weaves through them all. But beneath anxiety lies something even deeper, the human confrontation with suffering itself. Anxiety is one face of suffering, but there are many. To continue our journey, we must now explore suffering, not as an enemy, but as a teacher, not as a curse, but as a path to wisdom. In understanding suffering, we find the key to freedom. Suffering is the thread that runs through all of human existence. It is not limited to stress, money, relationships, or anxiety. Those are only its many faces. Beneath them lies a deeper reality. Life itself is marked by dukkha. The Pali word the Buddha used to describe suffering, dissatisfaction, unease. Dukkha does not mean that life is only pain. It means that everything we cling to, everything we depend on for lasting happiness, eventually slips away. Pleasure fades. Youth turns to age. Health turns to illness. Loved ones leave or die or change. Even when things go well, there is an underlying restlessness, a sense that something is missing, that this moment is not enough. This is the nature of suffering. It is woven into the fabric of existence. Imagine climbing a mountain with great effort, believing that peace waits at the top. You reach the peak, look around, and for a moment, you feel joy. But then the thought arises, what next? The view is not enough. The climb was not enough. The peace does not last. This is the cycle of dukkha. No matter what we achieve or acquire, it slips through our fingers. The job promotion, the new house, the perfect relationship all eventually lose their shine. The mind says, if only I had this, then I would be happy. But once it is gained, the mind says, if only I had more. It is like chasing the horizon. No matter how far you walk, it always stays ahead. This truth can feel heavy, even hopeless. But the Buddha did not teach suffering to trap us in despair. He taught it as the first of the Four Noble Truths, the doorway to freedom. To ignore suffering is to remain enslaved by it. To face it is to begin the path of liberation. Like a doctor who must diagnose the illness before offering a cure, the Buddha invited us to look directly at the nature of suffering, to see it clearly, to understand its causes. Only then can we find the medicine. The cause of suffering, he taught, is craving and ignorance. We crave pleasure, security, permanence. We ignore the truth of impermanence, the truth that everything changes. Because of this, we cling to what cannot last, and when it slips away, we suffer. This craving is not only for material things. It is for experiences, for feelings, for identities. We crave to be seen as successful, to be loved, to be safe, to be certain. We resist pain, we resist loss, we resist uncertainty. This push and pull grasping at what we want, rejecting what we do not want, creates the endless cycle of dukkha. But if craving is the cause, then letting go is the solution. Not letting go in the sense of losing everything, but letting go in the sense of releasing attachment. Imagine holding a rope tightly, hands burning from the strain. The pain does not come from the rope itself, but from our grip. The moment we release, the pain softens. Life is like that. Events happen, people change, loss comes, joy comes, sorrow comes. We cannot control these tides, but we can control our grip. By loosening attachment, we suffer less. By meeting life with openness instead of clinging, we discover freedom. This does not mean detachment in the cold, indifferent sense. It means intimacy without possession, love without fear, joy without clinging. Imagine sitting by a fire on a cold night. You enjoy its warmth, but you do not try to grab the flames with your hands. You know they would burn. You let the fire warm you while it lasts, and when it fades, you accept it. This is how the Buddha invited us to relate to all of life, to enjoy deeply, to love fully, to engage wholeheartedly, but without trying to hold what cannot be held. One of the most profound practices in transforming suffering is mindful awareness. Instead of running from pain, we turn toward it. Instead of numbing with distraction, we breathe with it. Imagine a wave of sadness rising in the chest. Normally, we fight it. We say, "I should not feel this. I must get rid of it." But mindfulness says, "Here is sadness. Let me feel it fully." We breathe, we notice, we stay present. The wave rises, peaks, and eventually passes. In this way, suffering becomes not an enemy, but a teacher. It teaches impermanence. It teaches compassion. It teaches the strength of simply being present. Consider the story of the Buddha before his enlightenment. He had lived in luxury as a prince, shielded from suffering. But when he saw sickness, aging, and death for the first time, he was shaken to his core. These experiences revealed the universality of suffering. No wealth, no power, no beauty could protect against them. Instead of turning away, he chose to face them directly. He left his palace, his comforts, his identity, to search for the truth of suffering and its end. His journey was not to escape suffering, but to transform it, to understand it so deeply that it no longer held power over him. This is the same invitation offered to us, to look deeply, to see clearly, to awaken. Another powerful teaching is the practice of compassion, or karuna. When we suffer, we often feel isolated, as if no one else could understand our pain. But the truth is, suffering is universal. Every person we meet has known loss, disappointment, fear, or grief. By remembering this, we soften. We realize we are not alone. Our suffering connects us to others rather than separating us. Compassion arises naturally when we see this shared humanity. When we hold our own suffering with kindness, we can hold the suffering of others as well. Compassion transforms suffering into connection, into love, into wisdom. Still, suffering is not easy to face. The instinct is to run, to deny, to cover it with distractions, work, entertainment, substances, endless activity. But running only deepens the wound. The pain remains, waiting. The Buddha compared this to being struck by an arrow. The first arrow is the unavoidable pain of life loss, illness, death. The second arrow is the suffering we add through resistance, anger, and denial. We may not be able to stop the first arrow, but we can choose not to shoot the second. By meeting pain with awareness instead of resistance, we reduce our suffering dramatically. Suffering also reveals our illusions. We often believe we are separate, independent, in control. But suffering shows us our interdependence. When we are sick, we need others. When we grieve, we need comfort. When we fail, we need encouragement. Suffering humbles us, reminding us that we are not isolated individuals, but part of a vast web of life. This recognition can deepen our gratitude and strengthen our compassion. It can also remind us of the fragility and preciousness of every moment. As we explore suffering, we must also explore its transformation. The Buddha did not stop with the truth of suffering. He offered the path beyond it, the Eightfold Path, the way of wisdom, ethical living, and meditation. This path is not about erasing suffering, but about transforming our relationship to it. Instead of fearing it, we learn from it. Instead of being crushed by it, we grow through it. Each step right understanding, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration is a step toward freedom. Together, they form a way of life that reduces suffering not only for ourselves, but for others. Suffering, then, is not just an obstacle. It is the doorway to awakening. Without it, we would never search for truth, never cultivate compassion, never grow in wisdom. Pain shakes us awake. Loss reminds us of love. Impermanence teaches us gratitude. Suffering, when met with awareness, becomes the very ground of transformation. It becomes the teacher that guides us to freedom. And yet, suffering is not only individual. It is collective. Entire societies suffer through war, injustice, poverty, oppression. To understand suffering fully, we must look not only within, but also around us. How does collective suffering shape us? How do we respond to the pain of the world? To continue our journey, we must explore suffering not only as a personal reality, but as a shared human condition, and discover how wisdom and compassion can bring healing to both. Suffering does not only belong to the individual heart. It belongs to the collective as well. Entire communities, nations, and even generations carry suffering in their bodies and minds. Wars, poverty, injustice, racism, and environmental destruction leave scars that last far beyond a single lifetime. A child born into poverty carries the weight of hunger and insecurity not because of personal failure, but because of collective systems. A refugee fleeing war carries trauma that will echo in their children and grandchildren. A society built on greed and exploitation plants seeds of suffering that blossom everywhere through inequality, through violence, through despair. To understand suffering fully, we must see that it is not only my suffering, but our suffering. The Buddha often spoke of interdependence. He taught that everything arises because of causes and conditions. Nothing exists in isolation. This is true of suffering. When we look deeply, we see that personal suffering is always connected to larger systems. Anxiety may be fueled by economic insecurity. Loneliness may be fueled by cultural fragmentation. Stress may be fueled by unrealistic societal expectations. Seeing this does not erase personal responsibility, but it broadens our understanding. It reminds us that healing is not only personal, but also collective. Imagine a pond filled with water. When a single stone is thrown, ripples spread outward, touching the whole surface. In the same way, when suffering touches one person, it ripples outward to others. A parent under pressure may lash out at a child. A stressed worker may bring tension home to their family. A community divided by fear may perpetuate violence. But the opposite is also true. When healing begins in one person, it ripples outward as well. A calm parent creates peace for their child. A compassionate worker brings kindness to their colleagues. A mindful community inspires others to awaken. In this way, the transformation of suffering becomes not only personal liberation, but collective healing. One of the most powerful ways to transform collective suffering is through compassion in action. Compassion is not only a feeling, but a way of living. It asks, how can I reduce the suffering of others? Sometimes this means small acts, a smile, a kind word, a listening ear. Sometimes it means larger commitments, volunteering, advocating for justice, working to heal the wounds of society. Compassion recognizes that my well-being is tied to yours, that your suffering affects me, that healing is not complete until it is shared. The Buddha called this the practice of right livelihood and right action living in ways that support peace, justice, and care for all beings. But how do we live with the vastness of collective suffering? When we see images of war, famine, or climate destruction, the heart can feel overwhelmed. The suffering seems too great, the problems too large. Despair whispers, "What difference can I make?" Here, Buddhist wisdom reminds us to focus on the present moment and the small steps within our reach. We cannot heal the whole world at once, but we can bring peace to this moment, to this interaction, to this choice. Dropping one stone of kindness into the pond creates ripples we may never fully see, but they spread nonetheless. Hope grows not from solving everything, but from doing what we can, where we are. Equally important is learning to hold suffering without being consumed by it. Many compassionate people burn out because they carry too much of the world's pain without balance. They try to rescue everyone, forgetting their own limits. But the Buddha taught the middle way, caring deeply while also resting, giving while also nourishing ourselves. To hold suffering skillfully means to witness it, to act with compassion, but also to breathe, to rest, to practice joy. Joy is not a betrayal of those who suffer. It is the fuel that allows us to keep going. A flower blooming in the middle of hardship reminds us that life contains not only pain, but also beauty. Practicing joy is part of healing suffering, not apart from it. Forgiveness is another path of transforming suffering, both individually and collectively. In communities torn apart by violence or injustice, holding on to hatred only continues the cycle. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting or excusing harm. It means refusing to let the poison of hatred live in our hearts. It means choosing to heal rather than to perpetuate the wound. History offers many examples. Nations that chose reconciliation over revenge, communities that chose dialogue over destruction. These choices are never easy, but they open the door to peace. Without forgiveness, suffering multiplies. With forgiveness, even deep wounds can begin to mend. Suffering also invites us to reflect on impermanence. No condition lasts forever, not even the most painful. Wars end, empires fall, wounds heal, seasons change. When we remember impermanence, despair softens. We realize that even in dark times, transformation is possible. What seems hopeless today may give birth to new growth tomorrow. This truth has sustained countless people through hardship. It is the reminder that suffering, while real, is not final. It is a chapter, not the whole story. Another teaching the Buddha offered is that suffering can become the very ground of awakening. Many people begin the spiritual path not in times of ease, but in times of crisis. Illness, loss, heartbreak, these shake us awake. They strip away illusions, force us to confront impermanence, and open us to compassion. A person who has suffered deeply often carries great wisdom and empathy. They know what pain feels like, and so they can sit with others in their pain without judgment. In this way, suffering becomes a teacher. It humbles us, softens us, and points us toward what truly matters. Still, it is natural to wish for a life without suffering. We dream of a world where no one is hungry, no one is lonely, no one is afraid. While this dream may never be fully realized, every step toward it matters. Every act of compassion reduces suffering. Every moment of mindfulness transforms suffering. Every breath of awareness brings healing. The path is not about erasing all suffering forever, but about transforming our relationship with it, so that even in its presence, we find peace. And so, as we look at suffering, both personal and collective, we see that it is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of awakening. To suffer is to be human. To transform suffering is to discover freedom. This is the heart of the Buddha's teaching, that suffering is not something to fear, but something to understand. And in that understanding lies liberation. From here, our journey naturally continues. For suffering often gives rise to fear of death, the greatest unknown, the final loss, the inevitable reality that no one can escape. Anxiety whispers of it. Relationships are threatened by it. Money cannot prevent it, and stress often grows in its shadow. To deepen our path, we must now turn directly toward this ultimate fear, to see death not as an enemy, but as another teacher. Another doorway to wisdom and peace. Death is the truth most people try hardest to avoid, yet it is the one certainty of life. We can escape many things, responsibilities, conversations, even countries, but we cannot escape death. Still, in modern society, death is treated like a forbidden subject. People hide it behind closed doors, whisper about it in hushed tones, and often pretend it belongs only to the elderly or the sick. But death belongs to everyone. From the moment we are born, we are walking toward it. And because we try to deny it, fear of death becomes a quiet shadow behind much of our anxiety, stress, and suffering. Think about how death shows itself in subtle ways. When we look in the mirror and notice new wrinkles, when we feel our bodies slow with age, when someone we love falls ill, a whisper of death passes through the heart. We quickly distract ourselves, rushing back to work, entertainment, or plans for the future. Yet no matter how much we avoid it, the truth waits. Death does not knock politely. It arrives suddenly in an accident, in a diagnosis, in a final breath. The unpredictability of death is what makes it so frightening. We do not know when, where, or how. We only know that it will come. This fear drives many of our actions. People chase wealth to feel secure, as if money could protect them from death. They seek fame, hoping their name will outlive their body. They cling to relationships, desperate not to be left alone. They fight aging with endless products and surgeries, trying to outrun time. But no amount of effort can prevent what is inevitable. The Buddha compared this to building a sandcastle at the edge of the sea. No matter how high the walls, the tide will come. The tragedy is not that the castle falls. It was always temporary, but that we waste so much energy pretending it will last forever. Yet, the Buddha did not teach about death to create despair. He taught about it to awaken us. To remember death is not to live in fear, but to live more fully. When we deny death, we take life for granted. We postpone joy, delay love, and assume there will always be more time. I will rest later. I will say, I love you tomorrow. I will follow my dream someday, but someday may never come. When we face death directly, every moment becomes precious. Each breath, each smile, each sunrise is no longer ordinary, but miraculous. The reality of death makes life shine more brightly. Consider a flower blooming in the morning. Its beauty lies not only in its colors, but in its impermanence. We appreciate it because we know it will not last forever. If the flower bloomed eternally, we would stop noticing. In the same way, the people we love are precious precisely because they are impermanent. Every hug, every conversation, every shared laugh is a gift that will one day be only a memory. To face death is to learn how to love more deeply, without delay, without holding back. Still, the fear of death runs deep. It is not only fear of the end of the body, but fear of the unknown. What happens after death? Is there anything beyond this life? Different cultures and religions offer different answers. Heaven, rebirth, nothingness. The Buddha himself focused not on speculation, but on what can be experienced directly. He taught that clinging to the idea of a permanent self is the root of fear. We fear death because we believe there is a solid I that will be destroyed. But when we look deeply, we see that this I is already fluid, already changing moment by moment. The body changes, thoughts change, emotions change, memories fade. What we call self is not fixed but a flow, like a river. Death, then, is not the end of a solid self, but a continuation of change. Imagine lighting a candle from another candle. The flame of the second is not the same as the first, yet it is also not separate. This is how the Buddha described continuity. Life flows into death, and death flows into new life. Nothing is lost, only transformed. To see this is to lose much of the fear. We realize that we are part of a vast cycle, an endless flow of being. Our bodies return to the earth. Our breath returns to the air. Our actions and words continue to ripple through the lives of others. In this way, nothing truly ends. Death is not destruction, but transformation. Another way to meet death is through mindfulness of the body. Many avoid thinking about the body's fragility, but the Buddha encouraged reflection. He taught monks to meditate on the body as impermanent, to contemplate its eventual decay. This was not morbid but liberating. By facing the truth directly, fear dissolves. We stop clinging to the illusion of permanence. We begin to care for the body with respect, while also recognizing it is not the ultimate source of identity. The body is a vessel, precious but temporary. To accept its impermanence is to live more peacefully within it. Death also teaches us about letting go. Every day, in small ways, we practice dying. We let go of childhood as we grow. We let go of dreams that do not come true. We let go of loved ones who move away. Each letting go prepares us for the final letting go. If we resist these small deaths, the final one feels unbearable. But if we learn to let go gracefully, death becomes less frightening. It becomes another step in the natural rhythm of existence. Letting go is not losing. It is making space for what comes next. There is a story of a Zen master who was asked what happens after death. He replied, "I don't know." The student was shocked. "But you are a master." The teacher smiled and said, "Yes, but I have not died yet." This humility is part of wisdom. We do not need to know every detail of death to live fully. We only need to accept its certainty and use it as motivation to live with awareness, love, and compassion. Speculation about the afterlife may inspire, but the true practice is to live this life deeply, knowing it is fleeting. Facing death also transforms our values. When we remember that life is short, arguments seem less important. Status loses its shine. Material possessions lose their grip. What matters most is connection, kindness, presence. At the end of life, people rarely regret not making more money or working longer hours. They regret not loving more, not forgiving sooner, not living authentically. By keeping death in mind, we live in a way that reduces regret. We speak the words we need to say. We forgive before it is too late. We live with intention, rather than drifting through life as if it were endless. Death is not only a teacher for the dying, but for the living. When someone we love dies, we are confronted with impermanence directly. The grief may feel unbearable, the loss overwhelming. But grief is also love that has nowhere to go. To grieve is to honor the depth of our connection. Over time, grief softens and love transforms. It becomes memory, inspiration, legacy. The person we loved continues in us, in our actions, in our kindness, in the ripples of their life that touch others through us. In this way, death does not end love. It changes its form, and so, to contemplate death is not to lose hope, but to gain clarity. It strips away illusions, reveals what truly matters, and invites us to live fully in the time we have. Death is not the opposite of life. It is part of life. To deny it is to deny reality. To face it is to embrace reality. And in embracing reality, we find freedom. Yet death also raises another question. How do we live knowing it is always near? How do we carry awareness of death, not as a burden, but as a source of strength? To answer this, we must go deeper into the practice of living with death as a companion, learning how to walk with it in peace, so that when the time comes, We can meet it without fear. To live with death as a companion may sound unsettling, but in truth, it is one of the most liberating practices we can embrace. Death is not a stranger waiting at the end of the road. It is with us in every moment. Each breath we take is also a reminder that one day there will be a final breath. Each sunrise we see is a gift we will not see forever. Instead of fearing this reality, we can invite it into our awareness. By making peace with death, we discover how to live without wasting our precious time. The Buddha encouraged his disciples to contemplate death regularly. He knew that when we remember death, our priorities shift. We stop clinging to trivial arguments, and we stop postponing what truly matters. We live with urgency, but not the urgency of anxiety, the urgency of love. We realize there is no time to withhold forgiveness, no time to delay kindness, no time to postpone joy. Death becomes a teacher, guiding us toward authenticity and presence. One way to practice this is through the meditation known as Maranasati, or mindfulness of death. In this practice, we reflect, death may come today. Death may come in the next breath. At first, this reflection can stir fear, but with patience, it brings clarity. We begin to see that every moment is precious because it is uncertain. We stop assuming there will always be more time. This awareness does not make life darker. It makes life brighter. Every hug, every meal, every conversation becomes more vivid, more alive, because we know it will not last forever. Think of someone who survives a near-death experience. Often, they return with a transformed perspective. They no longer take life for granted. They see beauty in small things. They cherish relationships. They live with courage. What changed? Their awareness of death awakened them to life. We do not need a brush with death to receive this awakening. We can cultivate it through reflection and mindfulness. When we live with death in our awareness, we begin to live more fully, more freely, more lovingly. But what about the moment of death itself? Many fear that it will be painful, lonely, or terrifying. Buddhist practice offers guidance here as well. The way we live shapes the way we die. If we live with mindfulness, compassion, and peace, we are more likely to die with mindfulness, compassion, and peace. If we live clinging and resisting, death will feel like a battle. This is why daily practice is so important. Each breath of awareness is preparation. Each act of letting go is rehearsal. Each moment of compassion is a step toward a peaceful death. When the final moment comes, we are ready not because we know what will happen next, but because we have trained ourselves to meet change with acceptance. Stories from Buddhist tradition illustrate this. Many masters faced death with serenity, even joy. Some sat in meditation until their final breath, their faces calm and radiant. Others spoke final words of teaching, reminding their disciples to continue practicing. These stories are not myths meant to glorify the unattainable. They are reminders that with practice, it is possible to meet death with courage and clarity. We may not die as a master, but we can die as a human being who has lived with awareness and love. Facing death also helps us face loss. When someone we love dies, grief can feel unbearable. We want to hold them, to speak with them, to feel their presence again. But death teaches us that love does not end. It changes form. The person lives on in our memories, in our actions, in the ways they touched our lives. Their kindness becomes our kindness. Their teachings become our wisdom. Their love becomes the love we share with others. In this way, death transforms but does not destroy. Recognizing this can soften grief, turning it into gratitude for the time we shared. Another powerful aspect of living with death is humility. We realize that life is not guaranteed, that we are not invincible, that our plans are fragile. This humility can be grounding. It reminds us not to waste time on arrogance, anger, or endless ambition. It brings us back to the simplicity of being alive. A meal shared with family, a walk in the park, a moment of silence under the stars. These become treasures when we remember death. They are no longer ordinary. They are miracles. Death also invites us to consider legacy. Not legacy in the sense of fame or monuments, but legacy in the sense of love and impact. What will we leave behind in the hearts of others? Will our words bring comfort or pain? Will our actions inspire kindness or fear? Death reminds us that every choice matters, not because it lasts forever in the world, but because it echoes in the lives we touch. When we live with integrity, generosity, and compassion, our legacy becomes one of peace. And yet, a thought of death can still bring fear. Fear of pain, fear of non-existence, fear of the unknown. How do we work with this fear? The Buddha's answer was simple. Bring awareness to it. Do not hide. Do not run. Sit with the fear. Feel it in the body, the tightening chest, the racing heart, the trembling hands. Notice the thoughts it brings. And then breathe. By facing fear directly, it loses some of its grip. We see that fear is not death itself. It is only a thought, a sensation. Death has not yet come. Right now, we are alive. Right now, we can breathe, we can love, we can be. Fear belongs to the future. Life belongs to now. Death, then, is not an enemy. It is a teacher. It teaches us impermanence, urgency, humility, love, and presence. It strips away illusions and reveals what matters most. By making peace with death, we make peace with life. We stop wasting time chasing what does not last. We stop hiding from what is real. We live fully and deeply, knowing that each moment is a gift. And so, as we leave this reflection on death, we step into another profound aspect of human struggle: attachment. Death reveals the cost of attachment, the pain of clinging to what cannot last. To understand how to live and die with freedom, we must now explore attachment itself. Why we cling, how it causes suffering, and how letting go opens the door to peace. Attachment is one of the deepest roots of human suffering. We cling to people, possessions, identities, and experiences as if they could last forever. We hold tightly, hoping that by doing so, we can prevent change, loss, or pain. But because everything in life is impermanent, attachment always leads to disappointment. The tighter we grasp, the more it hurts when life inevitably changes. The Buddha identified attachment tanha, or craving, as the source of suffering. To understand it clearly is to begin the process of liberation. Attachment takes many forms. Some are obvious, like the attachment to wealth, status, or beauty. Others are subtle, like the attachment to opinions, routines, or even our own suffering. A person may cling to their anger because it gives them a sense of control. Another may cling to their victimhood because it defines who they are. Still another may cling to the memory of a past happiness, replaying it endlessly in their mind, unable to accept the present moment. In each case, attachment is the same: a refusal to let life flow, a demand that reality conform to our desires. Consider a parent holding on to their child. At first, the attachment feels like love, and indeed, it is rooted in love. But as the child grows, the parent struggles to accept their independence. They want the child to remain close, to make choices that match their own dreams, to stay safe from harm. When the child chooses a different path, the parent feels betrayed, not because the child has done wrong, but because the parent's attachment was too tight. Love transforms into suffering because of clinging. To love without attachment would mean to support the child's growth freely, to celebrate their independence, to accept both closeness and distance. But this is difficult because attachment disguises itself as care. Attachment also arises in romantic relationships. At first, there is joy in closeness. But soon, fear appears, the fear of losing the other, of being abandoned, of not being loved enough. This fear drives control, jealousy, and endless demands. Do not leave me. Do not change. Do not disappoint me. But no partner can meet such demands because they deny the truth of impermanence. People change. Relationships evolve. Even the most loving bond will one day be separated by death. To deny this is to set ourselves up for heartbreak. To accept it is to free love from fear. Non-attachment does not mean coldness or indifference. It means loving so deeply that we do not try to possess, control, or freeze what cannot be frozen. Attachment extends beyond relationships to material things. People cling to houses, cars, clothes, or gadgets as if they defined who they are. They work long hours, sacrifice health, and neglect relationships to acquire more. But possessions cannot provide lasting satisfaction. The new car becomes old. The fashionable clothes go out of style. The house eventually needs repairs. Each possession carries with it the seeds of loss because nothing material lasts. Yet people cling, believing that happiness lies just one purchase away. This endless cycle fuels stress, debt, and emptiness. Even more subtly, we cling to our identities. We say, I am successful. I am a failure. I am a mother. I am a leader. I am anxious. I am strong. These labels give us stability, but they also trap us. Life is fluid, yet we try to fix ourselves in place. When our identity is challenged, we suffer. The successful person fears failure. The strong person fears weakness. The anxious person fears change. By clinging to identity, we resist the flow of life, and resistance creates suffering. The Buddha taught that there is no permanent, unchanging self only, a process of constant change. To see this is to loosen the grip of identity and live more freely. Why do we cling? At the root is fear, the fear of impermanence, the fear of uncertainty, the fear of death. We cling because we want stability in a world that is always shifting. We cling because we mistake impermanence for security. But clinging cannot stop change. It only makes change more painful. Imagine holding a handful of sand. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it slips through your fingers. If you hold it gently, it remains. Life is the same. Gentle holding allows us to enjoy it fully. Grasping makes it vanish more quickly. The Buddha offered the path of non-attachment, which is not rejection of life, but freedom within it. Non-attachment means enjoying people, possessions, and experiences without clinging to them. It means loving without fear, living without grasping, and meeting change with acceptance. It means letting life flow like a river without trying to dam it. Non-attachment is not coldness. It is warmth without fear, love without chains, joy without demand. It is the ability to open the hand, to let go, to trust that life continues. One practice for loosening attachment is gratitude. When we say, "Thank you for this meal, this moment, this person," we honor the gift without demanding it last forever. Gratitude softens clinging. It allows us to enjoy the present fully, knowing it is temporary. Another practice is generosity. By giving away what we cling to, we break the illusion of possession. Sharing wealth, time, or love teaches us that we are not diminished by letting go. We are enriched. Generosity transforms attachment into freedom. Asterisk meditation also reveals attachment clearly. When we sit quietly, we notice how thoughts arise. I want this. I fear losing that. I need this to be happy. Each thought is an attachment pulling at the mind. By observing without reacting, we begin to see through the illusion. We realize that the mind is constantly grasping, but we do not have to follow. We can let go, breath by breath. This practice does not erase attachment overnight, but it weakens its grip. Slowly, the mind learns to rest in openness rather than clinging. Stories from Buddhist tradition illustrate the power of letting go. One tells of a monk crossing a river. He builds a raft to carry him safely across. Once on the other side, he lifts the raft onto his back and continues walking. Soon he is exhausted, crushed by the weight. Another monk asks, "Why carry the raft?" "It was useful for crossing, but now it is a burden." The lesson is clear. Even useful things must be released when their time is past. Yet many of us carry rafts long after we have crossed the river. Old grudges, outdated dreams, possessions we no longer need. By learning to put them down, we walk more lightly. Attachment also blinds us to the beauty of impermanence. A sunset is breathtaking because it fades. A child's laughter is precious because it will not last forever. A shared meal, a moment of silence, a warm embrace, all are made meaningful by their impermanence. If life were unchanging, it would lose its wonder. Non-attachment allows us to savor life's fleeting beauty, to be fully present without fear of loss. We love more deeply when we stop trying to freeze love in place. Still, non-attachment is challenging. The instinct to cling is strong. Letting go feels like losing. But in truth, letting go is gaining freedom, peace, and joy. Imagine dropping a heavy bag after carrying it for miles. The relief is immediate. This is the experience of non-attachment. We realize we do not need to carry so much. Life is lighter when we release. And yet, attachment is not only about possessions and people. It is also about desires and cravings. The mind constantly says, "I want." These cravings drive much of our suffering. To continue our journey, we must explore craving itself, how it arises, how it traps us, and how Buddhist wisdom offers the path to freedom. Attachment hides itself in craving. At first, craving may appear small and harmless, a wish for a sweet taste, a desire for recognition, a longing for comfort. But craving grows quickly. The mind does not stop at one desire. It moves from one object to another, restless, never satisfied. This is why the Buddha compared craving to fire. A small flame can warm, but when fed endlessly, it becomes a blaze that consumes everything. Craving burns the heart, driving us to chase after more and more, never content, never free. God, think of someone scrolling through a phone late at night. They tell themselves they will stop after a few minutes, but one post leads to another, one video leads to the next. Hours pass, and still the mind hungers. Or consider the person who receives praise at work. For a moment, they feel joy, but soon they crave more recognition, more success, more validation. The initial satisfaction fades quickly, replaced by the need for another dose. Craving is endless because it is built on the illusion that something outside us will finally make us complete. But no external thing can fill the inner emptiness created by attachment. The Buddha described 3 kinds of craving: craving for pleasure, craving for existence, and craving for non-existence. Craving for pleasure is the most obvious, our longing for pleasant sensations, tastes, sights, sounds, and experiences. Craving for existence is subtler, the desire to become something, to achieve, to be important, to secure an identity. Craving for non-existence may seem strange, but it is real, the wish to escape pain, to numb, to disappear. Each type binds us, pulling the mind away from peace. Each type is rooted in attachment, the refusal to accept impermanence, the demand that reality conform to desire. But what happens when craving is denied? Many try to suppress it with willpower, to force themselves not to want. This rarely works. Suppression only pushes craving into the shadows, where it grows stronger. The true practice is not suppression, but understanding. When a craving arises, instead of acting blindly, we pause. We notice the sensations in the body, the thoughts in the mind, the story we tell ourselves. If I get this, I will be happy. By observing, we begin to see through the illusion. The craving loses some of its power. We realize that the object of desire is not the source of peace. Peace comes from letting go. Consider the story of a monk who was offered delicious food after months of simple meals. For a moment, he felt great desire. But instead of eating quickly, he paused and looked deeply. He asked himself, will this food bring lasting happiness? Or is it only a temporary taste? By seeing clearly, he enjoyed the food without clinging to it. He tasted it fully and let it go. This is the difference between mindful enjoyment and blind craving. The object may be the same, but the relationship is transformed. Mindfulness turns attachment into freedom. Another tool for transforming craving is reflection on impermanence. When we remember that every pleasure fades, we stop expecting it to bring eternal satisfaction. We enjoy it for what it is, a passing moment of sweetness, without demanding it last. A sunset does not need to be permanent to be beautiful. A song does not need to play forever to bring joy. By seeing impermanence clearly, we learn to savor without clinging. Craving softens, replaced by appreciation. Generosity also weakens craving. When we give, we loosen the grip of attachment. A person attached to money may discover freedom by sharing it. A person attached to praise may discover freedom by uplifting others. Giving shifts the focus from what can I get to what can I offer. This change of direction transforms the heart. Instead of feeding the endless fire of craving, we become a source of light for others. Generosity does not leave us empty. It leaves us rich in connection and joy. But perhaps the deepest practice in transforming attachment is learning to trust. Craving is built on fear, the fear that without this object, this person, this achievement, we will not be whole. Trust says otherwise. Trust says we are already enough, already complete, already whole. Trust in the present moment. Trust in the unfolding of life. Trust in the resilience of the human heart. When we trust, we do not need to cling. We can open the hand, release the grip, and rest in peace. Still, the path of non-attachment is not easy. It requires daily practice, constant awareness, and great compassion for ourselves. We will cling again and again. We will crave again and again. But each time we notice, each time we release, we grow lighter. The grip loosens. The fire dims. The heart opens. Slowly, the chains of attachment fall away, revealing the freedom that was always within us. Imagine carrying a heavy backpack filled with stones. Each stone is an attachment, a relationship clung to, a possession grasped, an identity defended, a craving pursued. At first, you do not notice the weight. You believe it is normal. But as you walk, the burden grows heavier. Then one day, you set the backpack down. The relief is immediate. You wonder why you carried it so long. This is the experience of letting go. Life becomes lighter, freer, more joyful. We realize that the backpack was never necessary. The stones were never who we were. We were always free, but attachment made us forget. And so, attachment teaches us a powerful truth. Freedom does not come from having more, but from needing less. Liberation is not found in the objects we acquire, but in the letting go of clinging. Love without attachment becomes compassion. Joy without attachment becomes gratitude. Living without attachment becomes freedom. From here, our journey flows naturally to another profound practice: mindfulness. For without mindfulness, we cannot see attachment, we cannot soften craving, we cannot release the grip. Mindfulness is the light that reveals the patterns of clinging and the path to letting go. To continue, we must now explore mindfulness deeply, what it is, how it transforms suffering, and how it opens the door to peace in every moment. Mindfulness is the key that unlocks the door to freedom. Without it, we remain trapped in cycles of stress, craving, fear, and attachment, pulled endlessly by forces we do not see clearly. With mindfulness, we bring light into the darkness of our habits. We begin to notice what is happening within us and around us, moment by moment, with clarity and acceptance. Mindfulness does not add anything new to life. It reveals what has always been here. It is the art of being present, awake, and fully alive. In the modern world, mindfulness has become a popular word. People speak of it in workplaces, schools, hospitals, and homes. Yet often it is misunderstood as a quick technique to reduce stress, like taking a pill for a headache. True mindfulness is deeper. It is not only a tool, but a way of living. It is not about escaping pain, but about facing it with clarity. It is not about controlling life, but about being present with life as it is. The Buddha described mindfulness as the direct path to awakening, the foundation of wisdom and compassion. It is both simple and profound at its core. Mindfulness means paying attention with openness and without judgment. When we breathe, we know we are breathing. When we walk, we know we are walking. When anger arises, we know anger is present. When joy arises, we know joy is present. Normally, our minds are scattered thinking of the past, planning the future, lost in stories. We miss the life that is happening right now. Mindfulness brings us back. It anchors us in the present, where life actually unfolds. The past is memory, the future is imagination, but the present is real. To live mindfully is to live in reality. Consider eating a meal. Without mindfulness, we eat quickly, distracted, barely tasting the food. Our body is at the table, but our mind is elsewhere. With mindfulness, we slow down. We notice the colors, the smells, the textures. We taste each bite fully. Gratitude arises naturally as we realize the food is a gift, the rain, the sun, the soil, the farmer, the cook all contributed to this moment. Eating becomes not just a physical act, but a spiritual one, filled with presence and appreciation. The same is true of every activity. Walking, listening, washing dishes all can be transformed by mindfulness. But mindfulness is not only for pleasant moments. It is also for pain. When anger arises, mindfulness notices. Here is anger. When sadness comes, mindfulness says, here is sadness. This simple recognition creates space. Instead of being consumed by the emotion, we observe it. We breathe with it, feel it in the body, and watch it change. No emotion lasts forever. By holding it with mindfulness, we prevent it from controlling us. We learn that we are not our anger, not our sadness, not our fear. We are the awareness that holds them. This realization is deeply liberating. Mindfulness also transforms relationships. When we listen mindfully, we give another person the gift of our full presence. We are not planning our response or judging their words. We are simply there, open and attentive. This kind of listening heals. It tells the other person, you matter. I see you. I hear you. In a world where distraction is constant, such presence is rare and powerful. Mindful listening deepens connection, builds trust, and eases conflict. In the same way, mindful speech prevents harm. Before speaking, we pause, breathe, and ask, are these words true? Are they kind? Are they necessary? This mindfulness of speech turns communication into a path of compassion. The Buddha taught the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Mindfulness of the body, of feelings, of the mind, and of mental objects. These 4 foundations are like stepping stones, leading us deeper into awareness. Mindfulness of the body begins with simple practices like following the breath, noticing posture, or walking slowly with awareness of each step. The body anchors us in the present. It cannot live in the past or future. It lives only now. By returning to the body, we return to life. This practice also reveals impermanence. We notice how sensations arise and pass, how the body changes with age, how fragile and precious it is. Mindfulness of the body grounds us in reality and softens our attachment to it. Mindfulness of feelings means noticing whether an experience is pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Normally, we react automatically clinging to pleasure, resisting pain, ignoring neutrality. Mindfulness helps us see these patterns. We learn to simply observe. This is pleasant. This is unpleasant. By noticing without reaction, we create freedom. We do not have to chase or resist. We can simply be present with the feeling, knowing it will change. Mindfulness of the mind is awareness of mental states. We notice when the mind is restless, when it is calm, when it is filled with desire or anger or compassion. Normally, we are lost in the mind's activity. With mindfulness, we step back and observe. This awareness reveals patterns, showing us how thoughts shape our experience. It also reminds us that the mind is not fixed. It changes moment by moment, like clouds in the sky. By observing, we learn not to identify with every thought, but to rest in awareness itself. Mindfulness of mental objects means observing the teachings of the Buddha directly in our experience impermanence, suffering non-self. For example, when we notice how a feeling arises and passes, we see impermanence. When we notice how craving creates suffering, we see the Four Noble Truths in action. Mindfulness becomes not just awareness, but wisdom. It transforms understanding from concept into direct experience. These four foundations are not abstract philosophy. They are practical tools. They invite us to live with clarity in every moment, to transform daily life into practice, to turn suffering into wisdom. Through mindfulness, we discover that peace is not somewhere in the future. It is available now, in this breath, in this step, in this moment. And yet, mindfulness is not always easy. The mind resists. It wanders, it distracts, it rebels. We sit to breathe, and the mind rushes into the past or the future. This is normal. The practice is not to stop the mind from wandering, but to notice when it does, and to gently return. Each return is a moment of awakening. Each return strengthens awareness. Over time, the mind becomes more stable, more calm, more present. Mindfulness is like training a wild horse. At first, it runs in every direction, but with patience, gentleness, and persistence, it learns to settle. The result is not control but harmony. As mindfulness deepens, we begin to see that it is not separate from life itself. It is not something we do only in meditation, but something we bring into every moment. Breathing, walking, eating, listening, working all become opportunities for practice. Life becomes the meditation hall. Every moment becomes a teacher. Mindfulness turns the ordinary into the sacred. And yet, mindfulness is not the end of the path. It is the foundation. It prepares the heart for deeper wisdom and compassion. It reveals the truth of impermanence and non-self. It softens craving and attachment. It calms the restless mind. But mindfulness must also be nurtured, protected, and expanded. To continue our journey, we must explore how mindfulness can be cultivated more deeply, how it grows into concentration, insight, and liberation. Mindfulness is like a seed. When first planted, it is small and fragile. It requires care, patience, and regular nourishment. Without attention, it dries up quickly, lost beneath the weeds of distraction and habit. But when we tend to it, through daily practice, gentle effort, and compassionate awareness, it grows into a mighty tree, offering shade, strength, and fruit. This tree is the foundation of inner peace. Its roots sink deep into presence. Its branches reach toward wisdom, and its leaves provide shelter for compassion. To cultivate mindfulness deeply, we must return again and again to the basics: the breath, the body, the present moment. Breath is always available, a steady companion from birth to death. Each inhale and exhale can be a reminder, I am alive now. This moment is enough. When the mind drifts into worry about the future or regret about the past, the breath calls us home. It says, come back. Here is life. Here is peace. A single mindful breath can interrupt a spiral of anxiety, soothe a restless heart, or anchor us in the middle of chaos. In this way, the breath becomes not only biological, but spiritual, a thread that ties us to the present. Beyond the breath, mindfulness expands into every aspect of life. Walking becomes a meditation when each step is taken with awareness. Eating becomes a meditation when each bite is savored with gratitude. Even washing dishes becomes a meditation when we feel the warmth of the water, the texture of the soap, the simple rhythm of the act. These small practices remind us that mindfulness is not limited to a cushion or a retreat. It is a way of being. It is the art of bringing sacred attention to the ordinary. But mindfulness must also deepen into concentration, known in Buddhist teaching as samadhi. Concentration is the gathering of the mind, the ability to rest steadily on one object without scattering. If mindfulness is the lantern that illuminates the path, concentration is the steady flame that allows us to see clearly without flickering. Together, mindfulness and concentration give rise to insight vipassana, the direct seeing of reality. With mindfulness, we observe. With concentration, we stabilize. With insight, we understand. These three qualities support one another, creating a cycle of awakening. For example, when we sit in meditation and observe the breath, mindfulness notices each inhale and exhale. Concentration holds attention there, preventing distraction. As the mind becomes stable, insight arises. We see impermanence in the changing breath, non-self in the absence of control, and suffering in the restless clinging of the mind. These insights are not intellectual theories, but lived experiences. They transform the heart, loosening the grip of fear, craving, and attachment. Mindfulness also teaches us about spaciousness. Normally, we believe our thoughts and feelings are solid and overwhelming. But with mindfulness, we discover they are like clouds passing through the sky. Anger arises, lingers, and dissolves. Fear rises, peaks, and fades. Joy comes, stays briefly, and moves on. The sky of awareness remains untouched. We realize we are not the storm, but the space in which the storm passes. This spaciousness brings freedom. It allows us to hold experiences lightly, without being swept away. It turns even pain into a teacher, even fear into a passing visitor. Another dimension of mindfulness is compassion. Awareness without compassion can become cold or detached. But true mindfulness is warm. It notices suffering not with judgment, but with kindness. When we feel pain in the body, we breathe with it gently. When we feel sadness in the heart, we hold it tenderly. When we see suffering in others, we respond with care. Mindfulness without compassion is incomplete. Compassion transforms mindfulness into healing, both for ourselves and for others. Still, the practice of mindfulness is not always smooth. Sometimes the mind resists. Old habits pull us into distraction, anger, or craving. We may feel frustrated, believing we are failing. But mindfulness is not about perfection. It is about beginning again. Each time we notice the mind has wandered, each time we return to the breath, we awaken. This is the heart of practice. Even if we must return 1,000 times, each return is valuable. Each return is a step toward freedom. Patience is essential. As the Buddha said, little by little, a person becomes filled with wisdom. Just as a jar is filled with water, drop by drop, in modern times, mindfulness is often separated from its ethical and spiritual roots, reduced to a stress reduction technique. While mindfulness can indeed reduce stress, its true power lies in transformation. It is not about making life more comfortable, but about seeing life more clearly. It is not about controlling the mind, but about freeing the mind. When practiced fully, mindfulness reveals the truth of impermanence, suffering, and non-self. It points us toward liberation, not just relaxation. To honor mindfulness fully, we must keep it connected to compassion, ethics, and wisdom. Imagine life as a flowing river. Without mindfulness, we are tossed by the current, crashing against rocks, carried into whirlpools. With mindfulness, we step into the role of observer. We still move with the river, but we no longer fight it blindly. We notice its flow, its currents, its changes. We learn to move with wisdom and grace. The river remains the same, but our relationship to it transforms. This is the gift of mindfulness. It changes not the world, but our way of living in it. And as mindfulness deepens, it naturally leads us toward compassion and loving kindness. For when we see clearly, we recognize that all beings share the same struggles, fear, loss, longing, hope. Mindfulness reveals our shared humanity. It opens the heart. The practice of loving kindness meditation, or metta, grows directly from mindfulness. By repeating phrases of goodwill, may I be happy, may you be happy, may all beings be happy, we extend mindfulness into compassion. We turn awareness into love. As we leave this exploration of mindfulness, we see its central role on the path. It grounds us in the present, calms the restless mind, reveals the truth of impermanence, and nurtures compassion. It is the lamp that lights the way, a seed that grows into wisdom, the practice that transforms suffering into peace. And yet, mindfulness is not separate from wisdom itself. It prepares the ground for deeper understanding, but wisdom is the fruit. To continue our journey, we must now explore wisdom, what it means, how it arises, and how it guides us toward the freedom of the awakened heart. Wisdom is the crown jewel of the spiritual path. If mindfulness is the lamp that lights the way, wisdom is the clear vision that allows us to see where we are going. It is not simply knowledge, not a collection of facts or doctrines. True wisdom is direct understanding of life as it really is. It pierces through illusion and reveals the nature of reality, impermanence, suffering, and non-self. Wisdom frees us from confusion and points us toward liberation. In ordinary life, people often confuse knowledge with wisdom. Knowledge can tell us how to build a machine, how to earn money, how to solve a problem logically. Wisdom, however, asks deeper questions. What brings true happiness? What reduces suffering? What is worth living for, and what is not? Knowledge may make us clever, but without wisdom, it can also make us arrogant or destructive. Wisdom humbles us. It shows us that all beings are interconnected, that every choice has consequences, that life is fragile and precious. Wisdom is not about knowing more, but about seeing more clearly. Buddha often described wisdom as the ability to see reality in three ways: impermanence, suffering, and non-self. These are known as the three marks of existence. To see them not just intellectually, but directly is to develop insight that transforms the heart. Impermanence, or anicca, is the truth that everything changes. Nothing lasts forever. Not joy, not pain, not wealth, not fame, not even life itself. Most of our suffering comes from ignoring this truth. We cling to what we want, resist what we dislike, and pretend things will stay the same. But when we see impermanence clearly, we begin to loosen our grip. We enjoy what is here without demanding it last. We face loss without being crushed by it. We find peace not in permanence, but in flow. Wisdom teaches us to dance with change rather than fight it. Suffering, or dukkha, is the truth that life is inherently unsatisfactory when clung to. Even the sweetest pleasure carries the seed of suffering, because it fades. Even the greatest success cannot protect us from aging, illness, or death. To see suffering clearly is not to become pessimistic, but to become realistic. It helps us stop chasing illusions. We recognize that lasting happiness cannot be found in external things. This recognition frees us to seek a deeper peace, one that does not depend on circumstances. Non-self, or anatta, is perhaps the most radical truth. We believe in a solid, permanent I that owns our body, our thoughts, our feelings. But when we look closely, we cannot find such a self. The body is constantly changing. The mind is constantly shifting. Emotions rise and fall. Thoughts appear and vanish. What we call self is just a process, like a flame or a river. This does not mean we do not exist at all, but that we exist in a fluid, interdependent way. To see this is to let go of ego, pride, and fear. It opens the door to compassion, because we realize we are not separate from others. Their suffering is our suffering. Their joy is our joy. Non-self is not a loss, but a liberation. It frees us from the prison of me and mine. Wisdom also arises through understanding cause and effect, known as karma. Karma is not about punishment or reward from outside, but about the natural law of actions and consequences. Every thought, word, and deed plants seeds that eventually bear fruit. Angry actions create suffering. Compassionate actions create peace. This truth is simple but profound. It means we are not powerless. We shape our lives and our world through our choices. Wisdom sees this clearly and encourages us to live with intention, with awareness of the seeds we are planting each day. But wisdom is not only about seeing suffering. It is also about seeing the possibility of freedom. The Buddha taught that just as suffering arises from causes, so does liberation. When craving and ignorance are uprooted, peace arises. When compassion replaces hatred, joy arises. Wisdom shows us the path out of suffering, the path of the Eightfold Way. It is like realizing that the door of the prison has been open all along. We only needed to see it. How do we cultivate wisdom? The Buddha gave 3 foundations: hearing the teachings, reflecting on them, and practicing them. First, we listen or read the Dharma, the teachings of truth. This plants seeds in the mind. Second, we reflect deeply, testing the teachings against our own experience. We do not believe blindly, but examine. Is this true for me? Does this match reality? Third, we practice through mindfulness, meditation, ethical living. Practice transforms wisdom from concept into experience. Without practice, wisdom remains intellectual. With practice, it becomes lived truth. Stories from the tradition illustrate this. One disciple asked the Buddha many questions about the nature of the universe, the afterlife, and metaphysics. The Buddha remained silent. Finally, the disciple demanded an answer. The Buddha replied with a parable. A man is shot with a poisoned arrow. His friends bring a doctor, but he refuses treatment until he knows who shot the arrow, what kind of bow was used, and what feathers are on the shaft. By the time he finds out, he will be dead. The lesson is clear. Wisdom is not about endless speculation. It is about seeing directly what heals suffering and what does not. The Buddha did not waste time on questions that did not lead to liberation. He focused on the practical wisdom that brings peace. Wisdom also grows through humility. The wise person is not the one who claims to know everything, but the one who admits how much is unknown. Life is vast, mysterious, unpredictable. Wisdom bows to this mystery. It recognizes that certainty is limited, that control is partial, and not everything can be explained. This humility protects us from arrogance and opens us to wonder. It allows us to live with curiosity rather than fear, with openness rather than rigidity. In daily life, wisdom means living with perspective. When difficulties arise, wisdom reminds us, this too shall pass. When success comes, wisdom whispers, do not cling, this too will pass. When anger flares, wisdom says, pause, consider the consequences. When joy arises, wisdom says, enjoy fully, but do not demand permanence. Wisdom guides us in every choice, large and small. It does not remove challenges, but it changes our relationship with them. It helps us navigate life with balance, clarity, and compassion. And yet, wisdom is not cold logic. It is infused with compassion. True wisdom sees the interconnectedness of all beings, and from this vision arises love. To harm another is to harm ourselves. To help another is to help ourselves. Wisdom without compassion can become harsh. Compassion without wisdom can become blind. Together, they form the heart of the awakened life. They are like two wings of a bird. Both are needed to fly. As wisdom deepens, we begin to see freedom, not as something far away, but as something possible here and now. Even in the midst of suffering, there can be peace. Even in the face of impermanence, there can be joy. Even in the presence of non-self, there can be love. Wisdom does not promise a life without pain, but it shows us how to live without being enslaved by it. It shows us how to find meaning in the fleeting, beauty in the fragile, strength in the vulnerable. And yet, wisdom continues to unfold. It is not a final possession, but a living process. Each moment of mindfulness, each act of compassion, each reflection deepens it. The more we live with awareness, the more wisdom reveals itself. It is not something we acquire, but something we uncover already present within us, waiting to be seen. Wisdom deepens when it is lived, not just understood. To read about impermanence is one thing, but to hold the hand of a dying loved one is another. To hear that craving causes suffering is one thing, but to notice the restless ache in our own hearts when desire grips us is another. Wisdom must move from theory to direct experience. It must become embodied, practical, alive. Only then does it transform how we live and how we die. One way wisdom becomes lived is through reflection on our daily choices. Consider anger. In the heat of it, we often believe we are justified. We cling to the story. I am right, they are wrong. But wisdom pauses and asks, what will this anger create? Will it bring peace or more suffering? When we see clearly that anger only spreads pain, we soften. We may still feel hurt, but we no longer fuel the fire. This is wisdom in action. It does not deny emotion, but guides how we respond to it. In this way, wisdom becomes practical, shaping the very fabric of our relationships and decisions. Another example is generosity. At first, giving may feel like a loss, but wisdom sees that giving is also receiving. When we share with others, joy arises. When we loosen attachment, freedom grows. The wise person gives not out of obligation, but out of understanding that life itself is interconnected. To help another is to nurture the whole. This is not abstract philosophy. It is a lived truth felt in the heart. When generosity is guided by wisdom, it becomes a source of deep happiness. Wisdom also shows us how to balance extremes. The Buddha taught the middle way, not indulgence in pleasure, not harsh denial, but balance. Wisdom recognizes that life is a path of harmony. Too much work creates burnout. Too much leisure creates stagnation. Too much self-criticism creates despair. Too much self-indulgence creates ignorance. The middle way is not a fixed point, but a living balance, always shifting, always responsive. Wisdom allows us to sense when we have gone too far and to return to balance with gentleness. This is how wisdom protects us from extremes that cause suffering, Humility is another hallmark of wisdom. The more we understand, the more we realize how vast the mystery of life truly is. A wise person is not one who boasts, but one who bows. They bow to the uncertainty of existence, to the complexity of the human heart, to the vastness of the universe. This humility creates openness. It allows us to listen, to learn, to remain curious. It protects us from arrogance, which blinds us. Wisdom says, "I do not know everything, and that is okay. I am part of something greater, and I can live with wonder." This humility is not weakness. It is strength born of clarity. Wisdom also transforms how we face suffering. Without wisdom, suffering feels like a curse, unfair and meaningless. With wisdom, suffering becomes a teacher. It shows us impermanence, reveals our attachments, awakens compassion. The wise person does not run from suffering, but learns from it. They ask, "What is this pain teaching me? How can it open my heart? How can it deepen my compassion for others?" In this way, suffering becomes part of the path, not a detour from it. Wisdom reframes suffering from punishment into opportunity. Another dimension of wisdom is perspective. Life is full of ups and downs, gains and losses, praise and blame. Without wisdom, we ride these waves blindly, elated when things go our way, crushed when they do not. With wisdom, we see the bigger picture. We know that gain will one day become loss, that praise will one day become criticism. We stop clinging to either. We take joy in success without being consumed by it. We accept failure without being destroyed by it. This perspective brings stability. We become like a mountain steady, unmoved by storms. Life still changes, but we are not tossed about by every wind. Wisdom also shines in compassion. To see clearly is to see that we are not separate. The suffering of others is our suffering. Their joy is our joy. This vision dissolves the illusion of self and opens the heart to boundless love. Compassion guided by wisdom is not pity or sentimentality. It is grounded, steady, wise. It asks, what truly helps? What reduces suffering? Sometimes this means offering comfort. Sometimes it means speaking hard truths. Sometimes it means simply being present. Wisdom guides compassion so that it heals rather than harms. Together, wisdom and compassion create the fullness of awakening. In daily practice, wisdom is cultivated through mindfulness and reflection. When we notice the impermanence of each breath, wisdom grows. When we see how clinging creates restlessness, wisdom grows. When we observe the mind and realize it is not fixed, wisdom grows. Each moment of clear seeing is a seed of wisdom. Over time, these seeds sprout and flourish, transforming how we live. Wisdom is not a sudden gift, but a gradual unfolding, like dawn breaking over the horizon. At first, only faint light appears. Slowly, the world becomes clear. Stories remind us of this unfolding. One tells of a disciple who asked the Buddha, "What have you gained from meditation?" The Buddha replied, "Nothing. But let me tell you what I have lost: anger, anxiety, fear, insecurity, and the illusion of separateness." This is the heart of wisdom. It is not about acquiring something new, but about letting go of illusions. When the veils fall away, what remains is clarity, peace, and compassion. Still, wisdom is not an endpoint. It is a way of living, a continuous practice. Each day, life presents us with new challenges, new opportunities to see clearly or to fall back into ignorance. Wisdom is the steady reminder to return, again and again, to the truth. It is the gentle voice that whispers, "Look deeper. See clearly. Do not be fooled by appearances." It is the compass that guides us through the changing landscapes of life. As wisdom matures, fear diminishes. We no longer fear impermanence because we see its beauty. We no longer fear loss because we understand it as part of the cycle. We no longer fear death because we know it is transformation, not annihilation. This freedom from fear is one of the greatest fruits of wisdom. It allows us to live boldly, love deeply, and let go gracefully. It gives us courage to face whatever comes, with equanimity and trust. And so, wisdom completes the circle of our journey. From stress, anxiety, suffering, and attachment, we arrive at clarity. From fear and confusion, we arrive at freedom. But wisdom is not the end. It points us toward compassion, a natural flowering of a wise heart. To complete our path, we must now explore compassion fully, not as sentiment, but as the active force that heals the world. For wisdom without compassion is incomplete, and compassion without wisdom is blind. Together, they form the heart of awakening. Compassion is the flowering of the awakened heart. If mindfulness is the seed and wisdom is the trunk, then compassion is the blossom that opens to the world. Compassion, in its essence, is the willingness to turn towards suffering, our own and others, with understanding and love. It is not pity, not sentimentality, not mere emotion. True compassion is active, courageous, and wise. It says, "I see your pain, and I am here with you." It recognizes the universality of suffering and responds not with avoidance, but with care. From the beginning, the Buddha emphasized compassion as inseparable from wisdom. He taught that to see clearly is to love deeply. When we realize that all beings are caught in the web of impermanence, craving, and suffering, the heart softens. We understand that anger, greed, and ignorance are not personal enemies, but conditions that bind us all. Compassion arises naturally from this understanding. It is not forced. It is the natural response of a wise heart. In modern life, compassion is often confused with weakness. People fear that if they are compassionate, they will be taken advantage of, or that compassion means excusing harmful behavior. But true compassion is not blind. It is paired with wisdom. It does not indulge wrongdoing, nor does it ignore harm. It sees suffering on all sides and seeks the path that reduces it. Sometimes this means offering comfort. Sometimes it means setting boundaries. Sometimes it means taking action for justice. Compassion is flexible, guided by clarity rather than sentiment. It is strong enough to face suffering without turning away. One of the most powerful practices of compassion is known as metta, or loving kindness meditation. In this practice, we repeat phrases of goodwill, beginning with ourselves. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I be safe. May I live with ease. Then we extend these wishes outward to loved ones, to neutral people, to those who are difficult, and finally to all beings everywhere. At first, the words may feel mechanical, but over time, the heart begins to warm. Compassion grows like a fire, spreading outward, touching every corner of life. This practice rewires the mind, shifting it from fear and separation to love and connection. Compassion begins with ourselves. Many people find it easy to care for others, but difficult to care for themselves. They criticize themselves harshly, carry shame, and deny their own needs. But without self-compassion, our compassion for others becomes fragile. We burn out, we resent, we collapse under the weight of giving without replenishment. The Buddha taught that we must treat ourselves as we would a dear friend, with kindness, patience, and understanding. When we hold our own suffering gently, we strengthen the capacity to hold others' suffering as well. Self-compassion is not selfishness. It is the foundation of all compassion. Compassion also transforms relationships. Imagine an argument between two people. Each is defending their position, convinced they are right. The tension grows, voices rise, hearts close. But if one person pauses, breathes, and remembers compassion, the dynamic shifts. Instead of seeing an enemy, they see a human being in pain. They soften, they listen, they respond with care. The argument dissolves into dialogue. This does not mean they agree on everything, but the atmosphere changes from hostility to connection. Compassion turns conflict into opportunity for understanding. On a larger scale, compassion transforms societies. In a world torn by division, violence, and inequality, compassion is a radical force. It asks us to see beyond race, religion, nationality, and politics, to recognize the shared humanity beneath. It challenges systems built on greed and exploitation, urging us to create structures that nurture rather than harm. Compassion is not passive. It is active, courageous, and revolutionary. It builds bridges where walls have been erected. It heals wounds where hatred has festered. Without compassion, wisdom becomes cold and justice becomes harsh. With compassion, justice becomes healing and wisdom becomes warm. But compassion is not always easy. To open the heart to suffering can feel overwhelming. When we see images of war, poverty, or disaster, we may feel despair. We may want to close off to protect ourselves from pain. Here, wisdom guides compassion. We remember that we cannot solve all suffering at once, but we can respond to the suffering in front of us. We can take one step, offer one act of kindness, bring one moment of relief. Each small act matters. Compassion does not require grand gestures. It requires presence. A kind word, a listening ear, a simple act of generosity. These ripple outward in ways we may never see. Equally important is balance. Compassion without balance leads to burnout. This is why the Buddha paired compassion with equanimity, upekkha, the ability to remain steady in the face of life's ups and downs. Equanimity does not mean indifference. It means caring deeply without being overwhelmed. It means offering compassion with the recognition that we cannot control all outcomes. We do what we can, and we let go of the rest. This balance allows compassion to be sustainable, a lifelong practice rather than a passing emotion. Compassion also includes forgiveness. To hold on to anger and resentment is to chain ourselves to suffering. Forgiveness does not mean condoning harm. It means releasing the poison of hatred from our own hearts. It means choosing healing over revenge. In this way, forgiveness is an act of compassion, both for ourselves and for others. It frees us to move forward, to love again, to live without bitterness. Without forgiveness, compassion remains incomplete. With forgiveness, compassion becomes whole dot at its deepest level. Compassion is boundless. It is not limited to those we like or agree with. It extends even to those who harm us, because wisdom sees that harm arises from ignorance and suffering. To wish healing for those who harm us does not mean we allow them to continue harming. It means we recognize their humanity beneath their actions. This boundless compassion is the hallmark of awakening. It is the heart of the Buddha, the heart that embraces all beings without exception. And so, compassion becomes the final step of our journey. From stress, anxiety, suffering, and death, we have walked through attachment, mindfulness, and wisdom, arriving here, the open heart. Compassion is not the end, but the culmination. It is the natural expression of an awakened life. When wisdom sees clearly, compassion responds lovingly. Together, they bring peace not only to ourselves, but to the world. Yet compassion, like mindfulness and wisdom, must be practiced. It must be cultivated daily, in small and large ways, until it becomes the natural state of the heart. To continue our journey, we will now explore compassion more deeply, how to cultivate it, how to sustain it, and how to let it guide us through every challenge and every joy. To cultivate compassion deeply, we must practice it in daily life. It is not enough to think kindly or to admire compassion as an idea. Like a muscle, compassion grows stronger the more we use it. Each interaction is an opportunity. When we meet a stranger, we can smile. When we see someone struggling, we can offer help. When we encounter rudeness, we can respond with patience instead of anger. These small choices may seem insignificant, but together they shape the heart. Compassion becomes not just something we do, but who we are. The Buddha often spoke of 4 immeasurable qualities: loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. Together, these are known as the Brahma Viharas, or the divine abodes. Compassion is central among them, but it is supported by the others. Loving kindness provides the foundation of goodwill toward all beings. Sympathetic joy celebrates the happiness of others, preventing envy. Equanimity keeps compassion balanced, preventing burnout. To cultivate compassion fully, we nurture all 4. They form a complete home for the awakened heart. One powerful practice is to begin each day with an intention of compassion. Before rising from bed, we can pause and set a simple aspiration. Today, may I reduce suffering where I can. May I meet others with understanding. May I act with care. This intention plants a seed in the mind. Throughout the day, it reminds us of our purpose. Even when challenges arise, the seed of compassion continues to guide us. Over time, this daily intention shapes our entire way of being. Another practice is compassion meditation. In addition to loving kindness phrases, we can visualize ourselves and others surrounded by light and warmth. We imagine suffering easing, hearts softening, burdens lifting. This visualization strengthens the emotional roots of compassion, making it more accessible in daily life. The brain learns to associate compassion with peace and joy, making it easier to respond compassionately, even in difficult situations. Over time, this practice changes not only how we feel, but how we act. Compassion also requires courage. It is not always easy to face suffering. Sometimes we want to look away, to numb ourselves, to pretend we do not see. But true compassion looks directly at pain without flinching. It says, "I will not turn away. I will stand with you." This courage is not about being fearless. It is about being willing to feel, to open the heart even when it hurts. Compassion accepts vulnerability. It recognizes that to love is to risk, to care is to feel, to connect is to be touched by the pain of others. Yet in this vulnerability lies strength, for it is the foundation of true connection. At the same time, compassion must be wise. Without wisdom, compassion can lead us to take on more than we can handle, drowning in others' suffering. This is why self-care is essential. To practice compassion, we must also rest, replenish, and nurture our own well-being. Just as a candle cannot light others if it burns out completely, we cannot sustain compassion if we neglect ourselves. Self-compassion, rest, and joy are not luxuries, but necessities. They are what allow us to keep giving without collapsing. Wise compassion balances care for others with care for ourselves. Compassion also extends beyond individual interactions to the way we live in society. The Buddha spoke of right livelihood work that does not cause harm, but contributes to well-being. To live compassionately means considering the impact of our choices on the larger world. What do we consume? How do we use resources? How do our actions affect the vulnerable, the environment, future generations? Compassion asks us to widen our circle of care beyond family and friends, to include all beings and even the planet itself. It is not limited to moments of kindness, but becomes a guiding principle in how we live. Forgiveness, too, is a profound expression of compassion. To forgive is not to excuse harm, but to release the chains of hatred. When we forgive, we free ourselves from the prison of resentment. We choose healing over bitterness. Forgiveness can be one of the most difficult practices, especially when the wounds are deep. Yet it is also one of the most liberating. It opens the heart fully, allowing love to flow again. Forgiveness is a gift not only to others, but to ourselves. It is the ultimate act of compassion, dissolving the poison of anger and creating space for peace. As compassion deepens, it transforms the way we see the world. We begin to recognize suffering everywhere, not in a way that overwhelms us, but in a way that opens us to connection. The homeless person on the street, the colleague struggling quietly, the child longing for attention, even the person who lashes out in anger, all become opportunities for compassion. We no longer divide the world into us and them. We see that all beings share the same longing for happiness, the same vulnerability to suffering. Compassion dissolves boundaries and expands the heart until it embraces the whole world. Expansive compassion is not abstract. It shows itself in action. It motivates service, generosity, and justice. Compassion becomes a force that not only eases individual suffering, but also works to transform unjust systems. It asks, how can I help not only this person, but also change the conditions that cause suffering? In this way, compassion becomes both personal and social. It heals hearts and also seeks to heal communities. It becomes a vision for a world rooted in care rather than greed or fear. Ultimately, compassion is the natural expression of awakening. When the mind is clear, when the heart is free, compassion flows effortlessly. It is not forced, not manufactured. It is like the sun shining. It cannot help but give light. The awakened person sees suffering and responds with compassion naturally, without hesitation. This is the fruition of the path. It is not about escaping the world, but embracing it fully, with love and care for all beings. As we conclude this exploration of compassion, we see how it completes the journey. From stress and anxiety, through suffering and death, through attachment, mindfulness, and wisdom, we arrive here at the open heart. Compassion is not the final step, but the natural flowering of all that has come before. It is the gift of the path and the gift we offer to the world. From here, our journey turns toward conclusion. We have walked through pain and healing, through fear and freedom, through confusion and clarity. Now we gather all the threads together into a closing reflection, a final invitation to live with mindfulness, wisdom, and compassion, to embrace life fully, and to walk the path of peace. We have walked a long path together. We began by naming the pain of modern life stress, anxiety, money worries, broken relationships, and the silent weight of despair. We looked into the root of suffering, not to turn away from it, but to understand it as the Buddha taught. We faced death, the fear that shadows every life, and learned that death itself can be a teacher. We examined attachment and craving, discovering that freedom lies not in clinging, but in letting go. We practiced mindfulness, the art of living fully in the present moment. We deepened into wisdom, seeing impermanence, suffering, and non-self, not as abstract ideas, but as liberating truths. Finally, we opened the heart to compassion, the natural flowering of a wise and mindful life. This journey has not been about abstract philosophy. It has been about life, your life, my life, the lives of all who suffer and seek peace. The teachings of the Buddha are not meant to sit in books or be spoken from a distance. They are meant to be lived, breathed, embodied. They are a mirror, showing us the truth of our own experience, and a doorway, leading us toward freedom. The truth is simple. Life contains suffering. This is the first noble truth. No amount of distraction or denial can erase it. But equally true is that suffering can be understood, transformed, even ended. This is the hope of the path. We are not condemned to live trapped by fear, anger, craving, or despair. We have within us the capacity for mindfulness, wisdom, and compassion. We have the power to walk the path of liberation. Look back for a moment at your own life. How many days have passed in distraction, lost in worry about tomorrow, or regret about yesterday? How many conversations have been rushed, words spoken without presence? How many opportunities for kindness have been missed because the heart was too burdened by anger or fear? And yet, here you are now, breathing, listening, alive in this very moment. The past is gone. The future is not here, but now is available. This moment is always available. This is where the path begins right here. Right now, imagine for a moment living each day with awareness. Waking up with gratitude for breath, for life. Eating with mindfulness, tasting each bite fully. Walking with awareness of each step, each movement. Listening to others with presence, without judgment. Meeting anger with patience, sorrow with compassion, joy with celebration. Facing change with acceptance, death with peace. This is not a dream. It is the possibility of mindfulness in action. And imagine living with wisdom. Seeing clearly that nothing lasts forever, and therefore loving more deeply, forgiving more quickly, holding less tightly. Seeing that craving brings suffering, and so letting go with trust. Seeing that the self is not solid, and so softening pride, fear, and separation. Living with wisdom means living in harmony with the truth, not fighting against it. It means finding freedom not outside, but within, in the clarity of the awakened heart. And imagine living with compassion. Meeting your own pain with kindness instead of judgment. Meeting others' pain with care instead of avoidance. Extending compassion beyond family and friends to strangers, to enemies, to all beings. Acting not from greed or fear, but from love. Building relationships, communities, and societies rooted in care. This is not weakness. It is strength. Compassion has the power to heal wounds, to bridge divisions, to transform the world. This path is not easy. The mind will wander, fear will return, attachments will grip, anger will rise. You will forget again and again. But each time you remember, each time you return, each time you take a mindful breath, you are practicing awakening. The path is not about perfection, but persistence. It is not about never falling, but about rising each time with renewed intention. Slowly, step by step, drop by drop, the jar of wisdom fills. Slowly, the heart opens. Slowly, freedom unfolds. The Buddha often said, "Do not take my words on faith. Test them for yourself, as a goldsmith tests gold by burning, cutting, and rubbing." This path is not about belief, but about practice. Do not believe mindfulness brings peace, try it. Do not believe compassion heals, practice it. Do not believe wisdom frees, see it in your own experience. Truth is not given from outside. It is discovered within. The Buddha did not claim to be a god or savior. He claimed only to be awake, and he invited others to awaken as well. That invitation remains open here and now. For you, as we end this journey of words, the real journey begins. These teachings are not meant to stay on a page or in your memory. They are meant to enter your life, to breathe with awareness, to walk with presence, to speak with kindness, to meet suffering with compassion, to live with wisdom. Each moment offers the chance to practice. Each day is a step on the path, and the beauty of this path is that you do not walk it alone. Every mindful step you take ripples outward, touching others. Every act of compassion eases not only your suffering, but the suffering of the world. Every insight you embody becomes a light for those around you. The path is personal, but it is also collective. We awaken together. We heal together. We build a world of peace together. So let this be the invitation. Do not wait. Do not postpone. Life is short, fragile, impermanent. Begin now. Begin with one breath, one step, one act of kindness. Let mindfulness anchor you, wisdom guide you, and compassion carry you. Live in a way that reduces suffering and increases peace. Live in a way that when death comes, you can meet it without regret, knowing you loved fully, lived deeply, and walked the path with courage. This is the promise of the Buddhist teaching. This is the possibility of the human heart. This is the gift of awakening Dot. And so, with a heart full of gratitude and hope, let us close this journey, not with an ending, but with a beginning. For the path continues moment by moment, breath by breath. May you walk it with presence. May you walk it with wisdom. May you walk it with compassion. May you walk it in peace,